guys, and welcome back to another episode of Brewluminati, the podcast where we drink beer and talk about conspiracy theories. My name is John.
And this is Jake.
And as always, we are going to start with some beer. So Jake, what are you drinking?
I am diving into a Southern Range Neapolitan Stout. Picked this up at one of our favorite places, Pharmacy. And it's a little weird. It's supposed to be, according to the label and the picture, Neapolitan.
Yeah.
Where you have the strawberry, the vanilla, the chocolate.
Yep.
And that would be a complex taste no matter how you gun it. But
right, all three mixed together. It's like the ice cream in the bottom of the bowl.
Sure, yeah. And it could be a little much. Comes out just, brown.
Yeah,
but
pretty much just brown.
Just brown. And, I'm a huge stout fan. Like, I love stouts.
Yeah.
Big on stouts and the subtleties that you can achieve. And this one tastes kind of like pennies. It's a little thin. It's soda-y. And
yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the soda-y thinness of stouts. I'm a very big fan of thick stouts.
It's more on like the porter side, but without the denseness of flavor that porters usually have.
100%. Like, this should have been more like porter, and they should have put some more strawberry in it or something.
Yeah. Like I took like a little tiny sip of it. And I think as soon as I took the sip, I just put it down. I was like, this tastes like pennies. It's like right. There's pennies in my mouth.
Yeah.
And that's all I can taste. And yeah, that was basically it.
Yeah. So, I like Southern Range. They're a great brewery. They are down in, I forgot, they're not too far from here. Southern Range is...
Keep riding the North Carolina beer train.
Yeah. I'm blanking where they're from right now. But yeah, anyways. So Southern Range, pretty good overall. I've had some of their good stuff. They make some good kind of basic serviceable beers.
Yeah, this one definitely seems like it's one of those like kind of out there experimental ones, and it just didn't really pay off.
Yeah, and they still send it to everybody anyways,
Yeah.
Because there's bills to pay. I get it.
Who knows? I don't know. I guess when they were developing this beer, somebody had to have taken a sip of that and been like, yeah, that's exactly what the ice cream goo at the bottom of the bowl tastes like when the Neapolitan all melts together. And I don't know if they were going for very separate chocolate, vanilla, strawberry flavors, or even like the, melted ice cream at the bottom of the bowl flavor.
It could have been different.
Way where they did not hit it at all.
They could have just done like a chocolate strawberry taste and written it off.
Well, so I'm looking at the can from across the table, and it does say that it's a milk stout.
Yes.
And milk stouts have a bunch of really weird flavors to them.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
They get real weird.
Yeah. So it could have gotten weirder. It could have gotten more strawberry
yeah. I mean, it basically could have had more of literally any flavor aside from
pennies.
Yeah. And I mean, part of it could be like something about the way that they cleaned the cans or the way that they canned it or the lining in it.
Yeah.
It tastes, because sometimes you get that sort of pennies flavor when the can that they can it in just like doesn't taste good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
When it just falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be that, could be a bad batch. Who knows? I don't think they succeeded in what they were setting out to do.
Yeah.
But I'm a fan of the brand, I'm a fan of Southern Range.
I mean, breweries have shit happen sometimes.
Yeah. As we know.
Yeah. As we know.
Yeah.
And I'll eventually tell a story about a time I had with that, and
which is still developing.
It's still developing because it once again just got more complicated.
We'll know the full tale soon. It's still going.
I know. By the time I talk about it, hopefully we'll have the full story. So
the funny part is this is episode 6.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for like 3 episodes.
At least. I feel like we've known about it since episode 1. Like, theoretically we're 6 weeks into this endeavor, and like we've known about it this entire time.
It seems like it's taking a long time, but the way that we record these, it's not nearly as long in actual time. But
space-time is a complicated thing.
It is. Yeah.
So what are you drinking over there?
All right. So what I am drinking over here is, I've never had this beer before, but this earlier in my younger life days with my wife, this was definitively my favorite brewery.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
which brewery is it?
It's Burial.
Oh, Burial. Yeah, of course.
And so this beer is a Burial, and Alvarado Street Brewery collaboration.
I've heard of Barrow, very familiar.
Yeah.
I've never heard of Alvarado.
I have not either. I've had a number of burial collaborations in the past, and they've always been just like completely on fire. There's another brewery in Black Mountain, North Carolina called Pisgah Brewing Company.
Yes,
and Pisgah did a collaboration with Burial. This was a bunch of years ago, and it was called Cemetery Gates, and it was a 22-ounce bottle only limited release, and it was just like on fire. It was.
This was a stout, I'm assuming, of some sort.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I honestly don't even remember what the beer was. I just remember
it being amazing.
I got a draft of it. Or no, they didn't even have it on draft. I had to buy it in the bottle.
Okay.
And they were like, it's really good. You should try it, whatever. So I had to buy a 22-ounce bottle of it. That's all they had. No draft, no nothing.
$27.
Yeah. I don't remember. I want to say it was like a $14 or $18 22-ounce or something like that. I mean, collabs
roughly
in 22-ounce
right.
bottles or whatever, they're always a weird price. But I got it and it was dope. And I got like 2 more to bring home or something like that. And I think this had to have been 5 years ago, because I want to say it was pretty close to about the same time that I got, or if it was about the same time I got engaged, it was 6 years ago.
Okay. And you're out in Asheville during all this time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I want to say this was the same weekend I got engaged.
Okay.
Was when I tried this one. Because I tried another really bomb beer that same weekend. And
that inspired you to get engaged?
No. I actually discovered this beer after we got engaged.
Gotcha.
And that's a cool beer story too. So I'm going to run off on a little tangent and then we'll come back to this beer from Burial real quick. There's another really good brewery that I enjoy that's up in Asheville, and they're called Asheville Pizza and Brewing Company.
Yes.
And they have 2 locations in Asheville, one in
I've
North
eaten
Asheville
there
and
several
one in
times.
downtown. Yeah, and my wife and I love the downtown one.
Yeah.
But I love that downtown area because that little area where Asheville Pizza and Brewing Company is downtown, just sort of just south of College Street. There's
cool spot.
there's like 10 breweries in like a 3-block area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like Asheville Pizza and Brewing Company. There's Green Man down there. High Wire is down there. The Burial Brewery's down there. Funkatorium is down there.
There's a good ice cream shop in the middle of all that too that I'm blanking on.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
All I know is all the breweries that
it was
are down
there 6 months ago.
Yeah. That's where Eno is, the Eagle Nest Outfitters, where they manufacture the Eno hammocks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff is all in the same area.
Gotcha.
Asheville Pizza and Brewing Company has it's like a restaurant and their brewery is down there. And we always go to that one. But basically what happened is about 6 years ago, around this time, my wife and I are up in Asheville for this weekend trip or whatever. And unbeknownst to her, I was about to propose to her, which I did.
Cool.
We stay in these little log cabins. So north of Asheville, there's a little town called Weaverville. And just south of Weaverville, there's these little log cabins called the Log Cabin Motor Court Inn. And what's fun about these little log cabins is they're extremely inexpensive. Cool. And if you're people like us where you take your dog everywhere, they're extremely inexpensive for taking your dog with you on road trips, which we always take my dog with us. He goes hiking with us. He does everything with us.
He's a special boy.
He is a very special boy. And so the Log Cabin Motor Court Inn is on the National Historic Registry. And so, nothing will ever happen to these log cabins. They're legit. Like,
they've been there since like the 50s, right?
Before that.
Okay.
Yeah. But each cabin has like a historic registry plaque on it and stuff like that. And if you go into their main office, there's this really cool plaque in there where it talks all about how the Log Cabin Motor Court was featured in the movie Thunder Road in the 50s.
Yeah.
So that's
I believe I stayed there when I was a teenager, which would have been 1,000 years ago. So
yeah. But they're cool because you can stay the whole weekend for under $200 with a dog.
Yeah.
Which is great
which
for
is
us.
Rare.
Which is great for us because when we were younger, we were really poor. And now we're not so poor, but we still stay there. Yeah, we still have my dog. He's like 1,000,000 years old, but he still goes with us, and we still stay at the same place.
Cool.
Not because we want to save money, but because it's nostalgic and we love it.
Yeah.
But from this place, if you head north out of Asheville, past this place, like you're going towards Weaverville, there's some really cool stuff in Weaverville. There's a pizza place there. Blue Mountain Brewery is there. There's some local bakeries and stuff there. But just a couple miles north of the log cabins and south of Weaverville, there's an entrance onto the Blue Ridge Parkway. And so, we went and got breakfast, and we came out there and we drove around the parkway for like 80 miles or something like that.
Cool.
We stopped at an overlook. We were just staying there admiring the Blue Ridges, because my plan was to go up to, there's a fire tower up in that same area that you can hike to, and you can go up in the fire tower and you can see like infinite distance along the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's really cool. My plan was to go up there, but unfortunately my plan got, goofed by the fact that it snowed. And so they had entire sections of the Blue Ridge Parkway shut down. So we got to a section where it shut down because it snowed, and
which is very common.
Very common. And so we had to turn around and come back, and we stopped at another overlook. I proposed, she cried and punched me. And then from there,
it's a shame it didn't work out.
Yeah. No, she said no and punched me. No, she said yes and punched me. But
I can see that happening.
Yeah. But from there, we came back down, and when you're coming down out of Weaverville back in Asheville, there's another Asheville Pizza and Brewing Company north of Asheville.
Yeah.
So we stopped in that location to have lunch or something. It was like mid-afternoon by the time we got back. And I told them that we had just gotten engaged, and I, for some reason, they had this like brand new experimental brown ale on their menu. And when I go places that I've never been and I try their beer, I always end up asking for 19 samples because I want to try everything. And then I pick the one that I like the best. And so this,
as one should.
Yeah. So, and I've been places where they don't let you have samples. They're just like,
don't go back.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's a spot outside of Shenandoah National Park in Virginia, and there's a little brewery there in that area, and they do not do samples. And I got real mad.
Lame.
Like, I don't know why, but I was just like, fuck this place, let's leave. But anyway, so I tried everything.
Was this during COVID?
No.
Oh, well, F them then.
Yeah. And so, so I tried all the different beers, and I settled on this brown ale. At the time, it was an experimental brown ale, so they hadn't like given it an official name.
Sure.
So at the time, it was called the Bronson Brown, and it was a graham cracker brown ale, and it was fucking awesome. It was on fire.
Nice.
And I told them, I was like, hey, like this beer is lit. Like, can I get some to take home? And they were like, no, it's like new. Like, we're not really giving it.
Not even a growler.
Yeah. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. Like, I just got engaged. This beer is so good, whatever. And the manager of all of ABV ended up coming out, and he was cool. Like, hey, like my server told me that you guys got engaged. Like, I know we're not selling this beer, but here's a growler of it.
Oh, cool.
And they attached a tag to it, and it was like, congratulations on getting engaged. Here's Bronson Brown Ale with the date and everything.
That's
and
awesome.
I still have that growler with the tag on it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like we kept it.
Nice.
And so every time I go back up there, I always want to stop and get pizza at this place because their pizza's dope. If you ever go through
their pizza, I've had their pizza.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
They did end up finalizing it, and it's called something else now, but they don't always have it. And I can't. Underground Brown.
Yeah, when I went, they didn't have any brown on the.
Yeah. So now they have it. It's only semi-seasonal. It's called Underground Brown. It's graham cracker brown ale, and it's amazing.
It was last year, the dead of winter, when I was there, and it was all like stouts and kolsch's basically.
Yeah. I want to say it's like in October, November at the very latest. It's like a mid-autumn brown ale that they have sometimes. Yeah.
Cool.
But so sorry, I got off on a tirade about Asheville breweries. I love Asheville breweries. They're my favorite ones in the state. But so in that same area of downtown where the other Asheville,
I wish I could live in Asheville.
I know, me too.
I would love to live there.
It's just too expensive.
Is it expensive now?
Extremely expensive.
Is it really? Like, and see, when I went there, the reason I felt like I couldn't live there is because it's getting to be too much like Portland. Like, there's too much like. It's gone over the kooky, and now it's too weird. And there's a lot of heroin addicts there, and like weird and like sketchiness.
So the only people who really live there are the like Mountainese type people, the like kind of poor hippies who sort of work the general jobs. You know what I mean? There's some local types, but they typically live like somewhere else. Like they're going to live in Weaverville, or they're going to live in Mills River, or they're going to live in
and then there's like the elite
or something
like the elite Asheville people,
and then
the Brewluminati.
The super old money Ashevilles, the rich people.
They're like sort of hippies, but they've been there since like the 60s.
Right. But if you're like a normal person with a normal job and you want to move up there, like you have to be prepared because there's no jobs.
Right.
The biggest thing up there is App Regional.
Yeah.
Which is a hospital system that's up there. And then there's like breweries and shit. So it's basically like you can either be a hippie who has like 9 shitty jobs.
Right.
Or you can be a brewery or cidery owner.
Right.
Or you can own a farm, or you can work at the hospital, or you can be independently rich. But otherwise, like if I was to move up there, like the only way we would be able to move up there is because I can do my job from anywhere.
Right.
And my wife
one of my coworkers lives there. He recently moved from Wilmington to Asheville. And he lives there and loves it.
Yeah. Like I would love to live there.
We work 100% remote, so it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So I could move there.
But my wife doesn't. So.
And my wife, we could move there, but you know, that county doesn't pay well for teachers. So she would take a pay cut.
Yeah.
And,
what county is Asheville?
I don't remember right now. I'd have to look it up.
Bunville or Dunville or something?
Yeah. I don't know. It's not Buncombe.
Buncombe. Yeah.
It's spelled like Buncombe.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's Buncombe.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that. I need to look it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the cost of living up there is much more. So if
I noticed the real estate
the real estate's extremely expensive, and we would want to buy.
Yeah, of course.
So because I'm not renting,
I'm not going to rent a place.
No. Yeah. So if you're going to go up there and you're like a normal person with a normal job, unless you're working remote and you have a significant other who can also work remote, and you're not going to take a pay cut, and then the higher living.
It'd be cool to live in like Black Rock or Black Mountain.
Like
have a home in like have a nice house in Black Mountain.
Or Swannanoa or somewhere like that.
Yeah. We rented a place in Swannanoa when we went up there for a couple days, and we rented out a home.
There's a bunch of great places to rent in Swannanoa and Black Mountain.
It was like on the side of a mountain. It was amazing. It was cheap. Like I don't know, it was like $110 or something for like a night.
Yeah.
And we rented out this whole house on the side of a mountain. It was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the hard thing there is the internet's bad. So it's like garbage. You need to be in Asheville proper if you're going to have good internet. And so even for me working remote, I would have to either go to an office, which we don't have an office in Asheville, or I would need somewhere with great internet, which is not going to be Hendersonville,
on a hillside,
Weaverville, on the side of a mountain, whatever. I'm going to have satellite internet, which is garbage. But yeah, so moving up there would be very difficult. It'd be very expensive. It's kind of tough. Like
still a dream though.
Yeah. So eventually when I don't need to have a job, I might move up there. But
all right, top 3 cities you would want to live in aside from Raleigh.
Oh God, that's tough. Okay.
So Asheville, obviously. Maybe not.
Okay. Probably top 3 cities I would live in. That's
doesn't
not
have to be domestic. You can go international.
Yeah. I was actually thinking that. Oh man. Like I think it's not a city, but literally anywhere on Maui.
Sure. I mean, I
love it down there. Yeah. I went down there a couple years ago, and a friend of mine lived in Northwest Maui, and she's a professional dive instructor.
Cool.
And I was just like, I love this place.
Probably a whole different life.
Never want
so different.
Yeah.
I've never been to Hawaii.
She's currently living on a sailboat that sails, they circumnavigate the globe.
Cool.
And dive.
Wow.
And it's like an educational thing.
So she's a teacher on that.
No, she's a master dive instructor.
Okay.
Well, so that's like basically it's like an educational sailboat that sails around the world, and they do educational shit, but she's there to do the diving part.
Does she have people with her and she educates them along the way, or do they go to places and educate the people there?
No, there's people who come to the boat and live on the boat, and they sail around.
She teaches all of them.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. So Maui.
Okay. So Maui, we got one.
Cool. Yeah.
Is Maui number 3 or number 1? Number 1 being the best.
These are in no particular order.
No particular order. Okay.
Yeah. This is tough because I've been a lot of international places.
Super tough. You got to pick a place.
There's part of me that kind of wants to say Grand Cayman, but kind of not. Like I might like Maui better.
You
No.
gotta keep in mind this isn't just like fun. You go there forever. You still have to work, and you have to pay your bills.
Oof.
So you can work. You work remotely. You can work remotely.
Yeah.
You know, and keep in mind like your wife's still coming with you. You got your dog with you.
Oh yeah. If Steve can't come, I'm not going anywhere anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Steve's got to come, and I have 3 dogs, so I got to worry about all those little shits. Yeah,
man. I don't know. This is tough because I could dream a lot of dreamy things.
Okay, so we got Maui. Let's put Maui number 3.
All right.
So let's stay domestic.
All right. So we're cutting international out because there's part of me that's like, I want to live in
hate
Japan.
cutting international out.
I want to live in. All right.
Yeah, but let's
just
stay
make it
domestic.
easier. I'm way too indecisive. If you give me too many choices,
right, it's too much.
There's no way I can pick.
Let's focus.
Okay.
Don't make me cut it to East Coast. Let's stay.
Okay. I feel like I should say Austin because there's really
Austin.
good barbecue there, and it's basically like Texas's Raleigh.
Yeah, it really is. It's a blue dot in the middle of a red state, just like Raleigh.
Yeah,
you know, and there's a lot of
dope
similarities
food,
there.
Bunches of hipsters. You
could find
beards. You could find a job there easy.
You both could find work there in 30 seconds. Steve would be very happy. There's lots to do there.
Yeah, they like guns. They would let me hunt.
They do
and stuff.
There's endless amounts. Okay, so we'll do Maui, which is still domestic.
Yeah, and
we'll
there's
Maui
cities on Maui, but we'll just say it doesn't really matter. You can cross the whole island in an hour,
exactly.
so whatever.
So it's like Ireland. You can get across the whole thing.
Yeah, Wailea. We'll say I want to live in Wailea.
Okay, and then Austin 2, and in no particular order. We're just going through the top 3.
Okay.
What else you got?
This is so hard. I'm just
so you wouldn't go to Asheville for one of them?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, I don't know.
What about like Colorado, like somewhere out there? Like
I don't know. I feel like I'm so attached to North Carolina as a state, though.
I mean, you've been here your whole life. It's a big thing. Yeah.
I might go further than Asheville.
Okay.
Like I'd probably go
like Boone.
No. No.
Pigeon Forge.
A little south of that. I'm thinking like Bryson City, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I can see that being cool.
Or like that kind of like
it's more chill down there. Like no tourists.
Yeah, like that sort of like somewhere in between Cherokee and Bryson
Cherokee's
City.
Cool. Yeah. I can definitely see the appeal down there.
And you can get way lost back in the mountains and it's sick.
And real estate's gonna be a little cheaper there.
Yeah, and you're really close to Smoky Mountain National Park.
You are. Is Chimney Rock's down there, right? Like in
Chimney Rock is south of Asheville, east,
not all the way down there,
northeast of Hendersonville.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
like Bryson City and Cherokee in that area, it's like an hour.
Cherokee's cool.
Cherokee's like Cherokee 30 minutes or so west of Asheville, and then another like hour and a half past that, Bryson City.
Yeah. Once I get past my I need to be near a city thing, I think like I'm going to start looking at places like that. You know, like I think that's kind of
there's lots to do up there. Like Smoky Mountain National Park has so much going on. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. Like outside of Cherokee, there's a town, I can't remember what it's called right now, but like the Wheels Through Time Museum is out there.
I've been there. I know exactly what you're talking about. That's pretty cool.
So when I did my bachelor party trip, we stayed.
You did it at the Wheels of Time?
Well, I'll get to yes, kind of. We stayed in this cabin up on the side of the mountain, like east of Cherokee, and we were like 15 minutes from the Wheels of Time Museum.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and
I've been there a bunch. Yeah,
it was like right near one of the BRP where you can get on. It was like right near there.
Yeah,
and
next to the highway, isn't there like a really sloppy like barbecue place there somewhere?
I don't remember. There's a bunch of weird stuff out there. But yeah, like we went to the Harris Cherokee casino.
Oh,
and we like got fucked up in the casino and like did
as one tends to do.
Yeah,
in the casino. Yeah,
and we got like
cool.
We came after we got fucked up at the casino. We came out and there was like a Burger King or something there, and we got like 35 single cheeseburgers.
Yeah,
like it was ridiculous. But we went to the Wheels Through Time Museum one of the days.
I've been to that. I know exactly. I've been to that place. Yeah, it's crazy.
But they were on History Channel for a while, and that dude who runs it was on there, and I met that dude. And I took all my bachelor party guys, and we went to the museum, and we met the dudes, and I entered this raffle to win a panhead. I didn't win it, but you know, it would have been cool if I did.
That
But
would've
we
been
met the
amazing.
guy who runs it, and I told him that we were there for a bachelor party and that I was the bachelor and I had all my dudes with me. And that dude literally just like followed us around the
Cool.
whole place and was like telling us about like where he got this motorcycle and
Cool.
how long it took to restore it. And he'd like hop on it and fire it up, and he'd
Cool.
be like, "Do you want to sit on it and rev it up?" And,
Oh,
shit.
that's
And he
so
did
cool.
that to like every motorcycle in this place.
Yeah.
And then when we got all the way back around to the back side of the museum, like right before it ends, there's a bunch of vintage cars back there.
Yeah.
Like
I know,
late
yeah, I know
1800s
exactly what you're talking
cars, like early 1900s cars. And there's this one where he was standing there looking at it and telling me about it. And he actually kind of looked at me and was like, you know, I haven't had that car out of here in a while and it kind of needs to be run. Like, do you
Whoa.
want to go? And I was like, fuck yeah, dude, let's
Abso-fucking-lutely.
go.
Yeah.
So we like hop in this like 1880s something car.
Cool.
Huge. This thing was massive. It was like 2 Chevy Suburbans put together.
Whoa.
It was huge, but it was like 80 horsepower or some shit.
Yeah, of course.
Like it was
Yeah.
ridiculous. And yeah,
There were
dude,
literally
like,
horses inside of it. Yeah.
yeah, this dude like pulls up a roll up door. We get in this thing.
Yeah.
Like he's like pumping the choke. And it takes like 10 minutes to get started. Fires up. It's all super loud and he pulls out and then he drives us all around the
Yeah.
area. And then we come back and like it keeps trying to stall on the road. So he has
Yeah.
to like glide it into the driveway and we're like going down. He can't get it back into the thing. So he just parks. He's like, oh, well, it's dead. So
Yeah. So, 2 things about that place. So, one of the funny things, my grandfather delivered a international scout to that museum
oh,
that the owner was taking. But this was back when they were new.
Yeah.
So, like, my grandfather was like vice president of Mack Trucks back in the day, and like,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah. And so, like, he knew this guy, and there was some deal or something happened, and like, basically, he drove down with this international scout for a trade for something.
Yeah.
And they swapped off, and like he drove away in a gigantic Mack truck or something, and
Okay.
like left the international scout there, and it was like a brand new 71 international scout. And when I went there, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe,
Yeah.
the international scout was still there. It was like the
shit, that's
original
cool.
one, like it was the same one. And from what I understand, the other funny thing was when I went there, I came out to the front of the place and I was talking to somebody and they had a WLA Harley Davidson, which is the World War II, the 1940s ones,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the like 1945 Harley panheads, basically.
Yeah. Where
And
they
they
have
had-
the little tiny engine. They get like 200 miles a gallon. Like,
Yeah. And so they had one of those out front, and it was like some really wild special edition one, like really rare thing. They only made a couple hundred of them. And it was being like brought into the museum.
oh,
And
that's cool.
the guy was like, I'm going to take this for a spin. And he like was revving it up and he like side-tailed into something. Like,
Oof.
I got to step up. We're just going to leave this here. And it's,
Yeah, those dudes are funny. But they have a bunch of really cool bikes in there. They have a bunch of old, like, turn of the century Thor bikes. They have, like, early 1900s Harley Davidsons.
a bunch of Indians, like really
a bunch
cool
of really cool
yeah.
Indians. Yeah. Like, my dream motorcycle is the, like, I can't remember what year it was. The one from Benjamin Button, like the 40s or 50s. Like,
yeah, basically like a World War II Indian, right? Like,
Yeah.
like post World War II, the ones that came out right after.
yeah, like the late 40s, early 50s
Would
Indian
you-
Scouts.
Would you do sidecar?
No.
You don't want
No,
sidecar?
I want it full Benjamin Button style. I want
Yeah.
like the AV.
I think I would do sidecar.
like
Like
the
I want
flat
to do
aviator
sidecar,
jacket.
put my dog in it. I think I want to do that. One of my
put some
dogs.
doggles on him.
Yeah, put the dog. Yeah, they would
Yeah.
never wear it, but like I love a sidecar. Like I want a bike with a sidecar.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
All
I think
right.
it's-
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, because I mean, fun fact, the only reason I bought the Miata is because the wife wouldn't let me have a motorcycle. So
I've owned
Miata's as close as you can get to a motorcycle.
Yeah, I rode a number of years back, and I've owned motorcycles before, and like,
Yeah. I've had a few. Yeah.
eventually I just got out of it, like, especially living in the city of Raleigh, and like,
Yeah.
Raleigh's not a huge spot, but there's enough people here that
Yeah.
every time I rode, people were trying to hit me with their cars, back
Yeah.
out in front of me.
I was in Fort Lauderdale riding, and it was,
Yeah.
it was nuts.
And I ended up selling my bike and at this point, all of my stuff. I kept
Yeah.
my jacket and my helmet for a couple of
You
years
should.
because just in case, you know.
Wait,
and
you
then
still have the jacket?
Nah, I sold them.
Yeah.
And because at that point, the rating on the helmet was almost up, and
Oh,
so
they
I was
go,
like, I'm
yeah.
gonna go ahead and sell it. And I went ahead and got rid of my jacket too, because a guy approached me about buying the helmet, and then I was like, hey, I got some jackets, and he was like, yeah, I'll take all of them. So he bought everything.
Nice.
And I was just like, all right, yeah, take it. But like a couple of months after I sold my bike, a really good friend of mine was killed riding in Zebulon, which is a little tiny town east of Raleigh.
There.
And it was just one of those experiences where it was like, he posted on Facebook that he was going for a ride, and people were like responding because he was like, hey, I'm going for a ride. Does anybody want to meet up? We can ride together. And I saw the post like an hour or two after he posted it, and I was like, hey man, like if I had a bike, I'd ride with you, but I can't. So, be safe. I'll hit you up later this week. We'll hang out. He was already dead. By the time I even posted that on the,
that sucks. That's so bad. I'm sorry.
So
that sucks.
Yeah, it super sucked. And so, I mean, I felt kind of bad about selling my bike. I like riding. It's really fun. Like if I was able to ride in a way that was like safe, you know, where I definitely wasn't going to get hit by a soccer mom.
Right. Of course.
I would do that.
Yeah.
But
just get plowed into
wife,
by a Chrysler
dog,
300.
Wife, dog, house.
Wait till you have a kid, and then it's
I'm just not trying to die doing it. Like I love riding, it's fun, but I'm not trying to die doing it. So,
I mean, that's why I was okay going Miata, because like I have a full roll cage in mine.
Yeah,
and I'm like okay, I can do this.
Yeah,
and I've got airbags.
Yeah,
but okay. So side question.
Okay,
if you could buy, let's say from the factory right now.
Okay,
what motorcycle would you buy?
From the factory right now?
Yeah, like new.
Oh man, that's really easy.
Oh yeah, what?
Yeah, one of the Triumph Bonneville like T100s.
That's so funny because like that's exactly what I would buy. They're like $7,500, $8,500.
I think they're more than that. I think they're
Are they a little
right
more?
At 9 or 10.
They've gone up a little recently, but like they're super classic, really great. I would pay a little bit more and get the Scrambler model. Because I like the dual side pipes.
Well, what's cool about the Scrambler model is the way that the pipes, instead of coming out the bottom and going out the back, they come out the side and then come up the side and go up the side. It's that bike is made for on and off road. Yeah,
I'd be a fan. That's why I like the Scrambler model.
Yeah. But there was like around 2013 or something like that. Triumph did a special edition of the Bonneville. And it had some German name to it. I can't remember what it's called. But so the Harley Davidson dealership in Raleigh is also a Triumph dealer.
The one on Tobacco Road?
Yeah, they're called Tobacco Road now. But it was Ray Price.
Yeah.
Because Ray Price was a big Harley Davidson drag race thing. And all the way up until the year before he died, he was still racing bikes.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And so after he died, the family didn't want to keep the dealership, so they sold it to whoever owns Tobacco Road now. So they have a combo Triumph Harley Davidson dealership there, and they had a version of the special edition bike, and they took it and dealerships will typically mod bikes and stuff. Like sometimes if they get a super special edition bike, they won't leave it that way.
Yeah.
They'll take it back and mod it.
Yeah.
And so they took this.
Not uncommon.
Yeah. So they took this like super special edition version of the Bonneville. They took it back into their shop. They put racing springs on it, slammed it to the ground, put cafe bars on it.
Cool.
They took the whole back end off. They put like a Japanese style cafe back end on it. All this stuff.
I'm a fan of that.
Super badass. And it was basically a cafe Bonneville.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, and I wanted it, but it was $12,000. So of course I didn't buy it. Plus the way that they'd slammed it was height ride adjusted for somebody who's really short.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like,
you're out of the
6 inches too tall.
Yeah,
for this bike. So, but it was really cool.
Makes sense. Yeah. I think I would go the same route. Like I really like.
Yeah, especially once they came out with the twin.
Yeah,
because they put a 1200 in the twin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's the biggest engine that's ever been in a Bonneville. Yeah. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, because I look at, the new lineup of Harley Davidson and the new lineup of and even the new Indians and stuff. Now Indians back, and some of the stuff they're doing is really cool.
I want them to do a throwback Scout.
They have to. Why are they not doing that?
I don't know. Because they're doing the Chief. That's basically the only bike.
Yeah. And I don't understand So
why they're not doing
and they're
a
expensive.
vintage
They're
thing.
like
yeah.
they're running too heavy. So it's really weird to see like this whole lineup. And I have no interest in like a CBR 1200 or whatever.
Yeah, but like
Honda's
if even
doing.
Ducati came back out with the classic 1200.
Yeah, I mean that's cool, but like
it's basically a super souped up Indian Scout.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's like if you took the 50s Indian Scout and put a 1200 in it.
Yeah.
That was the classic 1000.
Yeah. So it's I mean, I think right now that Triumph is like the way to go.
Yeah.
If I was going to do a motorcycle.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah. What about current production car?
Current production car?
Yeah, like if you could take one new car right now. Yeah, we're so far.
Are we talking about fast cars?
No, whatever car you want. I don't care. Like a Bentley, whatever. Like whatever you want.
Oh,
one
shit.
new
Anything.
production car off the line 2020.
See, I'm so modest. When I think about that, I'm like, I want a 4Runner.
like a 2024 Runner. They have those stupid shelf taillights.
I don't know.
You're like, I don't give a shit about the taillights.
Yeah, I don't know. Any production car.
Yeah. I mean, Hellcat. Are they still making Murcielagos, the Lamborghinis, whatever you can get in a 2020? What do you want to walk out the door with? Keep in mind you're keeping your current cars. Like you have a daily driver. We're gonna take. Yeah,
I do want to sell the Jeep.
Yeah.
So let's imagine I sell the Jeep. All I have is the Corolla.
You got a Honda Civic, whatever.
Yeah, I got a whatever to beat.
This is your toy. You get a.
This is my toy.
Price
I don't know.
doesn't
My
matter.
brother's gonna hate me if I say like a Dodge Demon or something.
A Dodge Demon would be pretty cool. Are they making Demons? And are they still making Demons?
I don't know. See, that's part of it. I don't really pay that. I'm too modest. I don't pay that much attention to cars I can't afford.
I think they are still making Demons. I think you can get a 2020 Demon, but like that's what you want, like the drag strip Demon.
Yeah, I mean, so it's tough because the car I had before the Jeep was a 2005 Mark IV Jetta. And I love that car. I had it slammed. It was all souped up. It was fast as fuck. I loved it. It like cornered really great. It would have been like a really great like rally car or like a good like autocross car.
I could see that. Yeah.
And like the thing that's always concerned me about
GTI.
getting into
like,
but the thing that's concerned me about like getting like a Challenger or a Mustang or something like that. I mean, they are straight line cars.
Yeah.
And that's just not how I drive.
Yeah, I get it.
You know what I mean?
I mean, nobody does that. Yeah.
So I mean, except my brother.
Says the guy who has like a big V8 Challenger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and anytime I tell my brother, I'm like, hey man, you know what? It would be really cool, a Challenger. He's like, Challengers are garbage. Like you don't want that crap. A bolt-on Mustang will eat a Challenger in live. And I'm like, yeah, says
most of the time. Yeah.
You're the one with a fucking 850 wheel horsepower bolt-on Mustang. Like, get out of my face.
That's a lot of money though.
I know. I'm just not a Mustang guy.
Yeah.
Either.
I've owned a couple Mustangs. Like I don't see anything. I had a 93 LX like notchback.
Yeah.
5.0. It was stock. I put some money into it. It was fun.
Yeah.
I had a 71 Mach 1, which was great, but I mean,
that's way more
disaster.
Me. Like I would love like a 69 Charger RT or like a Judge GTO or like something really cool like that.
Okay, fine. Let's
like
open it up to history.
Vintage cars. That's
Let's
way
open
more
it up to history.
Or like fully custom cars. Like I would love like a early 40s Dodge truck body rat rod.
Okay, I could see that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that shit to me is way cooler. Or like a really badass like V8 that's been like LS6 swapped or something.
That could be cool.
What did I say? A really cool V8, like a Volkswagen, like a Baja Beetle that's been like LS6 swapped. You know,
I don't know how you would LS6 a Baja Beetle, but yeah, that would be interesting.
You know,
I have seen one.
You just cut the whole back out of it.
No, you put the V8 in the front. I've seen it done. It's crazy.
Yeah. Like you could.
It costs a lot of money to do.
Yeah, or like the vintage Beetle or like the vintage Rat Rod Beetles where they slam them and then they
which
put
are
like
fun.
the Corvette engines in the front.
Yeah.
Like I would rather have something like that.
Well, it's unique. It's different. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I went for the Jeep. But then I figured out really quick I'm not that into it.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think. Well, if we were like all of time in history, I think I would love like a '69 Roadrunner.
Oh yeah,
I think that would be my like. I think that would be my like.
That'd be really cool. I almost bought a Year of the Bandit Trans Am
78.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a No, it was I can't remember.
The
Is it
gold.
77 or an
77, 78.
77.
Gold, yeah.
Yeah.
My first car was a 71 Chevelle Super Sport.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It my dad dragged a roller chassis up and basically built the motor from there.
Nice.
It was crazy. It was a wild car.
Yeah. Like one of the other ones that I dream about would be having like a 40s or 50s Bronco.
Did they make Broncos in the 40s, 50s?
Yeah, they did in the 50s.
The 50s? Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the early Broncos. Those are super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really cool.
I like the size of the 80s Broncos, but they're just garbage to drive. They're horrible.
Well, so the vintage Broncos, like the 50s ones, were the same size as the Bronco 2s.
Right. That's
It's just
I
it was a
like
way
the size of
better-
the Bronco too.
Yeah, so I had a 95 Bronco.
did they make stick Bronco 2s? Is that
I have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't know anything about the Bronco 2.
I've never seen a Bronco 2 that didn't have gigantic rust holes in it. That's one of the problems.
I mean, it was basically
Yeah.
garbage.
Okay, so 69 Roadrunner, that'd be a no-brainer.
Yeah. I would love like a R32 Skyline.
I was gonna just say that.
Really?
I was gonna say
Yes.
Skyline, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
I was gonna say R32 Skyline. And then I was gonna say, like, if I had to stick in 2020, I think if I had to stay in 2020, I would do a GTR.
Okay. Even though it's a BMW.
Well, yeah, I mean it's not BMW. but wait, no, I wouldn't, because you can't get a stick GTR anymore, like at that point. So like I don't
Well,
know.
so the thing that's about that too is like at this point with the way that the transmissions are going,
Yeah.
the stick is just nostalgic because the auto transmission is faster, more reliable, and works better than the stick does.
And listen, you like my two cars that I own do not show that off more than anyone could possibly imagine, because I have a 2020 Dodge Charger RT with an 8-speed automatic, and I have a 2000 5-speed Miata.
Yeah.
Like you cannot get on the further ends of like automatic excellence versus like
Mediocre
slush
stick
box,
shift.
crack box, you know?
Yes.
And like, I love that Miata to death. And the more I drive it, the more I love it.
Yeah.
And like,
It's just so shitty. It's amazing.
I mean, I can't not love it. It's like riding a jet ski. I just have a huge smile on my face every time I'm behind the wheel
Yeah.
and I'm driving around. And even if I'm just going to get like a gallon of milk,
Yeah.
but on the flip side, you know, it looked like there might have been rain. So I'm like, maybe should drive the Miata. There might be a little bit of rain.
Right.
You know? So it's like,
Yeah.
there's that whole other side of it, you know?
Yeah. And like, so like the Mustang that my brother has,
Yeah.
it's, I'm not even going to go into what he's done to it, all this ridiculousness, but his latest project is that he's pulling the manual out of it and
Okay.
putting an auto in it.
Like a newer auto.
Like, the automatic transmission that goes with the engine.
Oh, okay.
It's
I think the automatics handle higher horsepower levels in the newer Mustang.
they shift better, and
Yeah.
especially like, so once you get a car to essentially over 800 horsepower,
yeah. It's harder and harder.
It makes the car extremely difficult to drive from
Yeah.
a manual perspective, because you have to put these really expensive
Yeah.
like clutches in them, and if you're not used to it, you can burn them out really easily. Then you gotta send them back to be rebuilt. And
Yeah.
my brother's trying to make it into like a legitimate drag car, essentially. So from
I've
a
driven
drag
it.
perspective,
Yeah.
they're way more reliable. They shift faster. They go faster.
Yeah.
Like, so he's putting the 6-speed in it.
I've driven a drag car
auto in
before.
it.
And like on the, I mean, I've driven most of my cars on a drag strip, but like an actual like pro street drag car I drove was a 74 Nova 454.
Sick.
And it had a 2-speed, I want to say Astroglide, but that wasn't what it was. But it was a 2-speed, and it literally was like you go until you're almost done screaming, and then you shift it into the bottom, like the second gear. And
It
it's
has
like,
a low and a high.
yeah, you know when you're done by like your voice starts cracking because you're yelling so much, and then you crack it into the second gear.
Yeah.
And this was one of those cars that had like the parachutes off the back, and like, you know, the fuel cells and all that stuff. So it was too much. These cars are crazy. One of the reasons I like my Miata is it's probably been one of the lowest horsepower cars I've ever driven. I think it's like 140 or 150 horsepower. But the actual driving experience, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's what everybody says when they buy a Miata. Like the actual driving experience is a big deal. And that's what I like about it, is because you are actually connected to the road and driving around. And that's what makes me a fan, you know?
Yeah, I'm trying to look up on my phone right now. There's this really cool rat rod that this dude built, and he's he's a handicapped person, and
He was in the Netflix show,
yeah,
The Fastest Car or whatever.
Yeah.
I know exactly the
it's
one
that
you're talking
white Dodge truck rat rod, Lunch Money.
Yep. I know
That's what it's
exactly the
called.
one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like a 400 horsepower, like
Super cool dude.
yeah,
Looked like
And-
a fun ride.
yeah, and it is a 2-speed.
Yeah.
It's a high and low.
Yep.
And that's basically it.
And that's all it was. You know?
Yeah,
And that's all you
he
really
needs.
need.
And it's a hand shift kind of thing. Like he can drive the whole car.
And he
with
was
his hand,
competing against like high end Ferraris and like really amazing things, you know?
Yeah.
And he hand built,
he and a buddy.
Yeah, he and a buddy like hand built a lot of stuff. You
Yeah.
know? And it was an amazing car. Like I remember watching that, like when that show came out, and that whole season, that was the car I wanted to take home.
Yeah.
At the end of the season, I was
Exactly.
like, yeah, that's the one. That's the one I want.
Yeah. Like a buddy of mine is friends with a guy who builds rat rods.
Yeah.
And I want one so bad.
You can take your Jeep, strip it all down, and apparently you can use Jeep frames as like
rat
a
rod
big
frames?
yeah, like Jeep frames are highly sought out for rat rods.
Man, I wish I could do that, but I can't ditch the money I have in the Jeep. So if
Yeah.
you want to buy a really badass Jeep, I have one. It's pretty cool.
It is a badass Jeep. I highly recommend it if you do want to buy it.
Yeah. So I'll list it here soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway,
Yeah, let's
back to the beer. I still haven't talked about this beer. So it's from Burial. It's a collaboration with Alvarado. It's called Manifestations of Majestic Memoir. It's
which
IPA.
means something.
Yeah, I don't know. They name their beers all kind of goofy shit. But it's an IPA. They have a really weird description here of it. They say that it's, God, they say all kind of weird stuff on here.
things and stuff.
The can looks pretty cool. It has like a sunrise with clouds and mountain scene and all
Very
this stuff.
brassy.
Like yeah, it's really cool. But it says it's a sessionable IPA layered in extra pale barley and malted oats, saturated with incognito and Sabro Cryo hops.
It is sessionable. I tried it. Yeah.
Double dry hopped with hand selected Citra and Azaka hops with a dose of Sabro and Yeti hops. It's good. I mean, you could easily drink 6 of them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Really easy drinking.
You don't get IPA tongue from it.
No, not bad. I mean, it's definitely not one of those like super New England, very clean and citrusy kind of ones.
Yeah.
It's just like a really solid, medium ABV IPA, easy drinking. It's good. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Again, with our horrible rambling for so long, finally getting to the subject of the conspiracy. Jake, I don't know shit about this one.
Okay.
What are we talking about?
I'll educate you. All right. So yeah, I'll break it down. So a lot of the information here, I do know a lot about because we're pulling a lot of it from a book I wrote. So
Zach.
So yeah. So I wrote a book and released it earlier this year, and it was called the Florida Skunk Ape: A Complete History.
And where can you find said book for purchase?
You can, if you just Google Skunk Ape, you can find it on Amazon.
Nice.
So it pops up there. It's I wanted to make it free to everybody, but Amazon has certain rules about how they do stuff. So it's, if you don't have a Kindle Unlimited account, it's going to cost you 99 cents. If you have a Kindle Unlimited account, it's free. If you really can't afford it, send me an email and I will send you a copy 100% for free. Don't worry about it.
I mean, 99 cents is a little pricey for me. I get all my books from the library. So.
It can be highfalutin for a lot of people, but
it is.
I did originally want it to be free to everybody, but
books aren't worth 99 cents anyway. So,
well, yeah, silly books. And
I'm just
the
kidding.
people that read them.
I love books. I definitely have an attachment to print.
Yes, me too.
I can't read books on the internet. I gotta have paper.
I have probably quadrupled my reading amount since I switched to a Kindle. Because one of the things is when I lay down at night, my wife likes it very dark. And so I read the Kindle with the backlight. And so I end up staying up like 2 or 3 hours after she falls asleep and just reading.
Okay.
And so I just know I've really started reading a lot more since I went Kindle years ago.
Yeah. So I have actually a problem with my eyes where they don't read at the same speed. And so reading period for long periods of time
can be trouble.
Yeah, it can be very difficult for me. My eyes track at different speeds. So it's like the instant I start reading, I instantly start getting sleepy. It's really weird.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's less prominent on print.
Okay.
And it's
that makes
more,
sense.
It's more prominent on digital.
Sure.
Which I mean is not a problem with my job because I'm typically reading emails. It's like
you're scanning
sentences.
and going back and forth and doing a lot of different stuff.
And looking at spreadsheets is not a big deal or whatever. But like if I'm reading a print,
it's when you focus in.
Yeah, and it was hard in school where we were like reading textbooks where the text is really tiny and it's these very wide. You know, it'd be like 15 words wide.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that was really hard for me. Yeah. So now, like, if I do have to read print, I'll read the smaller. Like, they make like full size versions of books, and then they make these like mini versions of books where it's like a smaller, less expensive version. I can't remember what it's called, but the book is thicker, but the pages are less wide, so there's less words per line. That's easier for me.
It helps a lot.
Yeah, and then I read a lot of like graphic novels and manga and stuff like that, and that's a lot easier for me to read. So
because you're moving around, scanning a lot more.
So I don't typically read in digital. I also don't have a Kindle, so.
One of the things that might interest you about the Kindle is you can blow the font way up.
Oh.
So that like you can have 10 lines to 15 lines per
page,
quote unquote page, like for the screen.
And it's like a black and gray, right? It's not.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. So you can change the font to different things. You can change it around to whatever you want. So like it may work for you if you blow it up to a bigger font, you know.
And Kindles are pretty inexpensive too, right?
They are. I mean, yeah. I mean, for what you get, like the one I'm reading, the one I have right now, I think I paid $100 for it like 7 years ago.
Okay. And if you have like a Prime account or a Kindle Unlimited account, which is like $1 a month or some garbage, it's like really cheap.
Yeah. I have a Kindle Unlimited account, which is $9 or $10 a month. And you basically get access. It's like Spotify for books, essentially. And I read a lot. I read like 3 books a week, probably.
Okay, that's more than me. I might read 3 books a year if you don't include manga.
Yeah. So I mean, I dive in. I like chew through books really fast, and so like. I alternate. I'll read a nonfiction for a fiction. So like I go back and forth. So like the last nonfiction book I just read was I read Chernow's Hamilton, which is the book that they based the whole Hamilton play on.
Okay.
Which was it took me a little bit longer than normal to read because I think it's like 900 pages or something. It's a pretty thick book.
Yeah.
And then fiction book, I'm reading this really horrible book called Time Tunnel: The Twin Towers, and it's this time travel book about the Twin Towers.
Oh, that's weird.
It's just it's so hard to read.
Yeah.
And no offense to the guy who wrote it, but it's horrible. But it's still kind of fun because like it alternates between like what's happening at the Twin Towers on 9/11 and Roswell, New Mexico.
That's weird.
And I haven't seen the connection yet, but like.
He's trying to get to it, but you're
I hate to say exactly. I hate to say it's garbage because like I'm still reading it. You know, I'm like 50% through it. I'm still like slogging through it because it's kind of interesting.
But he hasn't made the connection yet, and you're halfway through the book.
No, not really. Like,
wow, that seems loose.
Yeah, his writing isn't top notch, but like the idea is there and the idea is interesting. So I'm following through with it. But yeah, so I read a lot. So like I went from like Chernow's Hamilton, which is like Pulitzer Prize winning level book.
Yeah.
To like
a little bit of internet gorbage.
Yeah, exactly. So I go back and forth.
Yeah. My wife reads a shit ton. Being a school teacher or whatever, she's all about racial equity and all of this ridiculousness. And so she's constantly reading like voice authentic books and stuff like that where you wouldn't think that that's a thing, but it's crazy when you look back through time how many books are written and they're not voice authentic. And so
most.
Yeah, most. So she's really into seeking out and finding voice authentic books and reading them.
And there's a lot of books nowadays that are voice inauthentic, you know, like
and they're identifying them more clearly.
Right, exactly, which is great.
Where like the young character is a young black girl and it's written by a white guy, like that, you know what I mean?
It's a problem.
Like, I mean, I don't know if I'd necessarily call it a problem, but it's not authentic.
Right. That's what I meant by problem is it's not authentic. Yeah. Because, you know, the backbone of writing is it's not just like write what you know. Like you can research something and figure it out and write what you think, you know? Right. And I very much, as a person who was a journalist for years and I wrote about a hell of a lot of things, I had no idea what they were.
Right.
You know, I had to figure them out to write these articles.
Right.
And so there is this definite understanding of like, if you want to write about something, you got to figure it out. You got to research it. You got to do it.
Yeah.
And there's this whole movement to kind of like slap down people who write about situations that they're not involved in.
Right.
You know? So,
right. It'd be like if I wrote a book about what it's like to be a female teacher in modern America. I don't fucking know. You know what I mean?
Well,
I could research about it. I could learn about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not that. So my voice would be inauthentic. So she reads a bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think it's
on the other hand, don't. I play a lot of video games. I do research for the podcast.
Yeah.
I like to hang out with my dog and exercise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to sit down and read, I'm basically almost exclusively fiction. And
do you ever ask her to give you a rundown of what she's reading?
Sometimes.
Like what? Like tell me about it.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I do. I sometimes will be like, "Hey, what are you reading right now?"
I do that with my wife a lot. Like I love what she reads. Yeah.
And there's this thing that I do that she hates, but it's really funny. So you guys should try it. If you're like me, where you're not a huge reader, I do read some. So like right now, I am reading the One Punch Man series.
Yeah.
Which, if you like manga or you like anime, it's really great. It's very funny. It's very witty. It's extremely well done.
Also, if you're in Raleigh and you wanted the One Punch series anime or the mangas, sorry, you've got them all, right?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry.
Apologies.
So I keep getting them in 10 book runs because I can read. So I don't read very fast, but when it comes to manga, I do read really fast.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I can blast
cool.
like really, really fast. And so I get 10 of them at a time.
Okay.
And basically, as I read them, I just give them to my wife because she goes to the library all the time because she has a teacher account. So
does she read them or just
no?
Oh, okay.
No, but as a teacher, you can get essentially unlimited.
You have
books
a different
with an unlimited time frame on how long you can have them.
Yeah.
So I have, I think, 6 or 8 more to get through for my next 10. And once I get down to like where I only have 1 or 2 left, I'll get the next 10. So sorry if you're in the Raleigh area and you're looking for One Punch Man.
You might be cheating the system.
I have numbers 15 through 20 or 17 through 20 right now or something like that. I don't remember. But once I finish this next set of them, I'm going to read the first Witcher book.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So because that one's sitting at the bottom of my pile. Like I want to finish One Punch Man, but there's a fuck ton of them.
Yeah. It's endless.
Yeah. There's a bunch of them. And so for me, it's like basically all about fiction, right? Harry Potter, dystopian novels.
Sure.
Shit like The Witcher. That's all
which
right
is
up
fun.
my alley.
It's great stuff.
And so because that's all I really want to read. I don't really care about people and their lives and things that happen in real life. I want to know about dragons and fantasies and, magic and dystopia and shit that's not real. Like if I'm going to sit down and read a book, it's got to be some shit that's not real.
Outside of manga, like outside of like, Japanese graphic novels.
Sure.
What's the best graphic novel you've read?
Oh, fuck. Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by graphic novel, because there is a slight difference between a comic and a graphic novel. And I have read a number of comics, but when
let's say graphic novel, because I know what you mean by the difference. Let's say graphic novel or limited comic series. Let's add that back in.
Limited comic series.
Yeah, like where it's a couple issues, like something like Arkham Asylum or like or The Killing Joke. Like
none, because I haven't read any of those.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so what were you going to say before I said that?
I was going to say either Walking Dead, because when I read those, I read them in the compendium format. So
and like
I don't
108 episodes, 130 or whatever it is.
Yeah, because I don't like to read individual comics. So I will wait until there's like 200 of the issue out, and then I'll buy the compendium. I'll read the whole thing, and then I'll sell it.
Have
and
you
I'll
read?
get the
Have you
second
read
compendium.
like Batman, like The Killing Joke, or have you read like The Long Halloween?
No, unfortunately. So
should.
I'm a really shitty comic reader. I miss all this really iconic, great stuff that
don't
people
say
are like,
that.
you should read this stuff or you should buy this stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know. I probably should, but I haven't.
Did you read the original Watchmen?
No.
You should.
See, my brother has that whole series and I need to get it from him and read
Just
it.
go punch him in the face and take his Watchmen.
He's told me. So my
One
brother has
Punch
this
Man him.
whole library of really great
Yeah.
graphic novels and manga and all this ridiculousness. And every time I go to his house, he's like, "Do you want to take something?" And I'm like, "No, not right now." But I should take the Watchmen from him. But one that I actually have read in trades, which is basically like a baby compendium. So there's individual issues of comics, and then once they get through like 10, they'll release a trade. It's like the first 10 episodes, and then once they get through like 200 episodes, then they release the compendium. It's like God is going to hate me for saying this because I think it is the most brutal comic ever written.
Okay.
It's called Crossed.
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
You are going to...
Should I not hear of it?
Yeah, you're going to regret me telling you about it. So
I'll just ignore it. I'll pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah. So Crossed is an extremely fucked up comic book series.
Okay.
Like if you can imagine The Walking Dead mixed with insanity, mixed with an entirely other level of completely demented and fucked up, that's Crossed.
Okay.
And like funny enough, my wife introduced me to them. She bought me the first trade.
Really? That's funny.
Yeah. And it's one of those series where when you go to the store and you pick up the trade and you take it up to the counter and you lay it down on the counter very softly and you like slide your hand off of the counter and like just stand there and stare at the guy checking you out. And then he turns and is like, "Can I help you?" And he turns and looks down and he sees you're buying a trade of Crossed. He very slowly just kind of picks it up and scans it and sets it back down on the counter. And then you can see it behind his eyes where he's like, "You're a piece of shit."
Amazing.
And they just...
I want to read it just by that description.
They never say anything to you.
Okay.
You take it up to the counter, you lay it down.
They're just like, Jesus Christ.
They pick it up and scan it. They put it back down. They look at you with these very judging, "You're a terrible person for buying this," eyes. And then, they go about their business.
Okay.
But what's crazy about it is a number of years ago, it exploded.
Okay.
People started figuring it out. Like they were like, "This is the most brutally insane, fucked up bullshit that is on print here."
Give me like
an example?
2-sentence. No, just give me like a synopsis. Like what's happening in this? Why is it?
So essentially the storyline of Crossed is imagine essentially a Walking Dead type situation.
Sure.
Right?
Zombies.
The world has ended, zombies and whatever. Except that the zombies are not zombies. They're just people who have gone completely insane by this basically biotissue transmitted disease. Imagine like 28 Days Later, where it's like...
So it's a virus of some sort.
Yeah, it's like a virus of some sort. It's sort
they're
of
sick.
You're right, but
they're still human. They're still there.
They're not zombies. They're not dead, rotting people. They're
just crazy
people. So it's sort of more on a like mix of The Walking Dead, but with more of like a 28 Days Later essence, where it's like, because in 28 Days Later, they're not zombies. They have a virus called the rage virus, and it makes them unbelievably like filled with rage, and they just run after you and want to kill you. It's a very similar premise here.
Right.
So there's this virus, it infects people, it makes them insane, and they do horrible stuff.
Right.
And it can be transmitted in a number of different ways.
Are they thoughtful?
Yeah.
Like, do they think about what they're doing? They like plan things out?
Yeah. They're intelligent.
It's not just like crazy.
No.
Okay.
That's like,
horrible.
It's not like unfettered rage like 28 Days Later is. It's actual like groups of them get together and try and get people and think of fucked up ways to hurt you. They're still intelligent. They can create groups and hierarchies. They can use guns. Like,
oh, that's so horrible.
They're just insane.
That's even worse. That's 1,000 times worse.
Yeah. And so like, here's a really good example. In the very first trade, I think it's like the 5th or 6th episode. The main characters are in a group, and basically as they travel through the first season of this, they are getting killed in different horrible ways, and the group is dwindling. And one of the ways that the crossed go about getting some of the people from the group as they are hunting them down is the crossed take a bowl and they fill it with bullets. Not like just the projectiles, like loaded bullets ready to put in guns. And they stand around the bowl and they jerk off into the bowl and get their bio fluid all over the bullets, mix it all up and load it into guns. And then all they have to do is shoot somebody and the
and they're
biomaterial infects them.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's how they get some of the group.
Oh.
By shooting them with these like jizz covered bullets with the virus on it.
And you're reading that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're into that.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I mean, yes, but no. No. I mean, and just if you have never thought that was a way that you could transmit a virus type situation, well, I mean, that's the level of fucked up creative that this goes.
Right. I mean, if you're like this group and you have to figure out how to bring other people into this group.
Yeah.
Sure. And if you're not like 28 days later a raging zombie thing and it's just like, if it's just you and me, like, and we don't lose any of our day-to-day cognitive abilities and we have to come up with ways to bring people into our group and do stuff.
Yeah, it's like the absolute deepest, worst versions of yourself that you could possibly imagine, except 100 times worse.
But you're still infected with this thing. Like,
yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah. So, I mean, but be prepared because if you read this book, I mean, they hurt people and kill people in really, really horrible masochist.
I mean, I'm not going to read it.
Ways.
I'm not judging you for
there's, I mean, there's killing in it. There's rape in it. There's, I mean, a lot of really horrible subject matters in this book. But it's horrible. I definitely could only read a couple of issues at a time before I had to put it down.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to even get through the first trade because I could only read an issue or two at a time.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Because it would kind of like fuck me up a little bit. Like I would read an issue and I would just be like, oh my God, that really disturbed me. I have to put the book down for 2 or 3 weeks before I could pick it back up, read the next one.
I tend to like hold off on stuff like that.
But yeah, so I mean, typically that's more what I read. So I'm really interested in getting into The Witcher.
So you're a horrible person.
Yes.
And you read those horrible things that horrible person reads.
Yeah. Well, eventually I got through enough episodes of it that I was like, all right, I think I'm burnt out on this. I never finished it.
So The Witcher, that was a video game first.
No.
It wasn't.
It was actually a series of novels written in Polish.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. Okay. So The Witcher series, it's a series of novels.
Okay.
It's written through the 80s.
Okay.
And it was written in Polish and it became a Polish phenomenon. Like if you are Polish, there's a huge chance that you know about or have
It's like
read
the Polish
the
Game
Witcher
of Thrones kind of thing.
Like, it'd be more like the Polish Lord of the Rings.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
Because it was just huge. It blew its way through.
And you can get them in
everybody.
English. Like obviously they made translation. So and you've been reading the translations?
Yeah, I have the first one.
How is it? Is it good?
I read the first chapter.
Okay.
I basically read the prologue.
Okay.
And then I was like, all right, this is really good. But
did you play the game?
Yes.
Okay. What did you think about the game?
I've
never played the game.
Loved it. It was great.
Yeah. It's supposed to be amazing.
It was a very authentic and detailed, telling of the story.
I'm probably the only guy who worked at a major video game company and never played video games.
Yeah. No, I mean, people still play Witcher 3. I mean, it was a global phenomenon. Like it really opened the door to the entire world learning about and loving the world of The Witcher.
Now, Witcher is one of those games where like they have libraries and you can find scrolls and there's like this endless world of like all these different things you can read.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember a friend of mine like talked about like he went and found a certain book and he had been reading it for like a week in the game.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it's all full of really detailed lore and the characters are really robust.
That's awesome.
And it's
I love
really
that.
immersive.
Like, that's really cool.
Yeah. Like it's one of those games where you could put thousands of hours into it and there's just so much.
Which I'm in danger of doing. That's why I tend to not play those games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the Witcher series of games, which they're on the third one now, but there's been 2 more previously.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't able to play the first 2 because at this point they're on legacy consoles. But the Witcher 3 was a PS4 game.
Okay.
Right. So, and I think it was PS maybe 2. I don't know. But I have a PS4. I was playing it on PS4. And yeah, like it was just I didn't know at the time that I was playing it that it was a book. And then the series came out on Netflix with Henry Cavill.
Oh yeah.
And it was really
Superman.
great. Yeah. And
Fan of the show.
yeah, actually Henry Cavill has played all of the Witchers. He played through the whole thing. He played the whole thing. He read all the books and everything. So it was really interesting. Like Henry Cavill's a huge nerd. He did a great job playing Geralt.
Right.
Yeah, like I mean the writer, I can't remember if he was in I watched the making of the Witcher series too, and I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure the writer was involved.
Yeah.
And he was like, if you could have translated the books to a series.
I heard it was amazing. Like I never watched it because I didn't play the game,
it's
so
great.
I wouldn't know.
You should just watch. Like you don't have to play the games or read the books to love the Witcher series. On
Okay,
it's really, really.
I'll give it
great.
a watch. I'll see.
Because it's a really.
I'm finishing
cool...
Watchmen right now, so once I get through that,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, the Witcher world. Like, does it help if you've read the books and know the lore? Sure, but I never read the books, but I do know some of the lore, from the games, and yeah, I mean. The show is just really great. Like it does not follow the books at all.
Okay.
In no way does it really follow the storyline of the books because they do this like time jumping thing in the show.
Okay.
That's how they took portions of the book and like weaved the story into a way that it would make a really interesting TV show.
Okay.
But even the author, if I recall correctly, said something like, you know, if you were to take the Witcher books and make them into a TV show, does this follow the books? No, but is this a really interesting way
but it's
to
what he wanted,
represent the world of the Witcher?
Cool.
Yes, like it achieved the mystique and the just all the storytelling and stuff. Like it was really cool. And so now knowing that, having played the games and then watched the series, I want to go back and read the books and like really learn all of that. And so I'm really interested. So I read the first chapter. It introduces 2 of the main characters immediately. And it almost starts immediately. Like if you know about Geralt and some of the other characters, especially his lady friend character and how they intertwine.
Right into it.
It jumps right in.
Cool.
The first book does immediately in the prologue. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to go ahead and get through these next couple for books of One Punch Man and then get into The Witcher.
One more side question before we go into Bigfoot.
Lord. All right.
One more.
Okay.
Are you playing Valhalla?
No. So
what do you know about it and why aren't you playing it? Because everybody's telling me I should play it.
Okay. So the reason I'm probably not playing Valhalla right now is a couple reasons. So first, I've had a PS4 for a number of years.
Okay.
I basically stopped playing it carte blanche a number of years ago, and that's because I was having the Blu-ray drive issue that people were having. And I didn't have the money, and it was out of warranty. I didn't have the money to go fix it. I really didn't feel like I was like needing to go do a bunch of research into what was going on with it. So a couple of years go by, and right before I buy my new house and move, I was like, this is pissing me off. I need to figure it out. I go online, I research the issue. It's a transmission issue with the eject button. And so I end up taking the top of the case of my PlayStation off, taking some electrical tape, taping it over a thing, putting it back down, and boom, my PlayStation's fixed.
Amazing.
So I didn't need to stop playing it, but I did. And I was off of it long enough that I was now behind by a number of years in what the current games were. And I just didn't feel like getting back into it. And so I had already been working on a Resto Mod PC with my brother, and I had in the time that my PlayStation was being weird, transferred to PC.
Okay.
And if you don't know what a Resto Mod PC is, they're pretty cool. I can go into it another time. But basically, I take old parts and I make them compete against current gen hardware for a tenth of the cost. of buying a new PC. So, so it's pretty cool. I know all about it. Legacy hardware and overclocking legacy hardware and stuff like that. It can be really interesting, but we'll talk about that another time. And so I had transferred to PC gaming. I had tried a number of different games to get into. I'd played a bunch of League of Legends. I had been trying to get through Destiny, which I was playing with my brother. And I eventually made my way into the world of Apex Legends, which is an offshoot of the Titanfall world.
Yeah.
It's made by the same people who made Titanfall.
Right.
And so now basically I have been completely inundated into destroying people at Apex. And so that's what I do now, essentially.
That's your whole gig.
I dominate.
That's your day job.
I wouldn't say I dominate people. I'm not like if you know about Apex Legends, I'm no Zeus or I'm no Temps or Quick B or anybody like that. But I mean, if you play against me,
don't let him fool you.
I might kill you. I might kill you.
He's actually Zeus. Don't let him fool you. He's Jupiter.
Actually, Zeus.
He's Jupiter. He's the alternative Zeus.
Yeah.
Have you played any of the Assassin's Creed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I played the first 3.
Okay.
And I stopped after that.
Somebody told me Valhalla was amazing, and I'm like, the last actual like PC game that I played was Fallout 4 was the last real like PC game I played.
Yeah.
Because the job I was in, Asus gave me like a free big time like gaming laptop, and I that was the game that was out right then, and so I played it for a while. And then I downloaded GTA 5 and was all over that forever.
GTA 5 is still a thing.
Yeah.
They're still milking it to this day.
So basically, like, my gaming history was whenever a new GTA would come out, I would buy a new console with whatever the current GTA thing is.
Right.
And that's what I would play until I got sick of it. And then I would stop playing games.
Yeah. So I was always a big like RPGer. So coming up through like my youth days, I have either owned or played every single Final Fantasy.
Okay. Even 7?
I've owned multiple copies of 7. Fun fact, if you don't know about 7, you can beat 7 to 144%. I'm trying to remember now. It's something.
Yeah.
You can beat that game over 100%.
Way over. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've done that multiple times or whatever. I played all of the Final Fantasies. I played all of the Metal Gear Solids. Like, that was my jam, playing that kind of stuff. And eventually, I don't know, my attention span just got to the point where I couldn't sit down and play a Final Fantasy and really get the story out of it anymore.
Yeah.
And so I kind of stopped. Plus, once I got up to so the last one that I played and just really dominated my way through and loved was Final Fantasy 12. And once I got to Final Fantasy 13, like, that is a straight line game.
Okay.
You run in a straight line the whole game, and it's terrible. Like, it's not a good Final Fantasy.
I've heard people say that, yeah.
And then 14 is an MMO, and then 15 came out, and it was next-gen console. It was very expensive, and I didn't buy it, and I didn't play it. So I just kind of stopped going down that direction, too. So, and once and I liked playing PlayStation because they, with the PS3 and stuff like that, they didn't charge you to play online like Xbox did with Xbox Gold.
Right.
Network access was free, and then with PS4 it's not free, so I have to pay $60 a year to play online. So like, you can download Apex Legends for free on any platform, but if you want to play online with PlayStation, you have to pay $60 a year.
Right.
I can also play completely for free without having to pay anything on PC. So I do that instead. It's less expensive. And I get better
that big fancy PC upstairs.
Yeah, and I get better frames, and I'm more competitive, and I have more control over what I'm doing, and it just seemed like a better way to go at the time when I was trying to debate between staying on console or switching to PC.
That makes sense. Let me ask you another side question.
Okay.
How do you feel about camping?
What do you mean? Like camping, like going out in the woods? I love camping. I don't know if you can see all this camping shit.
Is that what all this is?
Yeah.
All these boxes?
Fun fact, since it's COVID right now, Jake and I are more than 6 feet apart, sitting at my fold-out table, and we're in my garage recording.
It's a beautiful garage.
Instead of in my office, which is a noise-suppressed room. So
it's a beautiful office also.
Thank you. But yeah, no, I have all of this hunting shit and camping shit up here on the top of my...
So let me ask you this.
Okay.
You ever see anything weird out in the woods?
Sure.
What kind of weird things have you seen out in the woods?
I don't know. Okay, so probably one of the weirdest things that I've seen is so west of Asheville in the similar area that we were talking about earlier, south of Smoky Mountain National Park. There's a town called Bryson City.
Yeah, I know exactly the place. Yeah.
So out northwest of that Bryson City area, still south of the park, there's a area called Fontana Lake. And around the
exactly
Fontana Lake area, there's a dam there called Fontana Dam.
Yep.
And Fontana is not natural.
Right.
It is.
There is a campsite right near there, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So Fontana is a flooded mountain valley. And it was flooded by the U.S. Corps of Engineers. And there
in the 20s, right? Like
I don't remember.
I think it was the late 20s.
But I think you're right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of not conspiracy, but weirdness basically around the development of flooding Fontana. And basically that weirdness is centered around this shady thing that the government did, where essentially in that area at the time before the lake was built, there was still a bunch of homesteading happening back there. So there was basically a bunch of homesteading happening back there. So there are all these like no electricity, no internet, no TV, people living off of the land, communities,
rough camping,
back there.
Primitive.
Yeah. And, but they had like houses and, there was like they were like these really weird like railroad towns and stuff.
Appalachia folk.
Yeah. And
I've been all through there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so essentially what happened was that what the US government wanted to put a lake in here. And so what they told the people who lived in all of these homesteads is that they would buy the land from them for market value. And but the main concern of the people is that they wanted to still be able to get back to their burial grounds. And so what the government told them is that they would build a road.
The base,
and this road would go from northern Bryson City all the way around the lake back to where their burial grounds are, so that they could get back to their family burial grounds. And so the U.S. government started to build the road, and during the same time, like overlapping, they bought all these people out of their land, and the people started to move out under the, good faith assumption that the U.S. government would continue to build this road. And basically, as soon as they bought the land and these people moved out, the U.S. government stopped building the road. So if you go into Bryson City, northwest of Bryson City, there's a little area called the Road to Nowhere, and there's all these concrete barriers in the road, and you have to stop, and you get out and you walk, and you go through this tunnel that's like 100 yards long. And once you get to the other side, it's maybe another 100 yards, and then the pavement just starts to degrade and then stops.
Yeah.
And right there at the end, there's like 14 trailheads headed out into hundreds of miles worth of trail that go through Smoky Mountain National Park. And so that area is extremely weird. But the deal that the government has made with all these people after they've left, and then they did the Road to Nowhere and basically fucked them, and they got sued by these people, is the government now has to pay for ferries that go on a rotating schedule of going to the different burial grounds on like a weekly basis. And you can basically either pay for or hitch a ride on one of these ferries to get out to a landing spot along the different weird way back areas of Fontana Lake. And my wife and I and her family have gone back there.
Oh, wow.
And so basically you get on a pontoon boat and you ride 30 minutes or more, and they drop you off on the side of a weird mountain embankment, and you just walk back. And if anything happens, you're at the least a 40-minute ferry ride or hundreds of trail miles away from help.
Right.
And so you can walk back there, and as you're hiking back, there's still houses back there that are abandoned. There's like mills and railroad stuff back there that's all abandoned. And we've hiked all through that and seen all that kind of stuff. Like we've like climbed through all of these, like they're essentially ruins. Yeah. Of these like turn of the century, like railroad storage mill buildings and stuff like that all back there. And it's extremely spooky and weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of that through Appalachia from basically northern Georgia.
I have to stop you. You have to say Appalachia.
Appalachia?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
So,
As a Floridian.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Appalachia.
So pronunciation is actually a huge thing
It's
through
important.
the Appalachian Mountains. And part
Yeah.
of the reason for that is if you ever look into like how pronunciation matters for different areas, and this was very apparent in the UK, like Ireland and Europe and area like that, and it's apparent here too, is the different ways of pronouncing different words. People try to basically be like, you know, now in modern times, they're like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. Like it's Appalachia. It doesn't really matter. But if you look back through the history of it, it actually does, because the way that you pronounce
like
the word, whether it's Appalachia or Appalachia, the way you pronounced it was a tell about what either political group or the way you felt about the people in that area.
I totally agree with you on that.
Was. And Appalachia is the native pronunciation, and Appalachia was,
and it shows where I'm from,
was like people breaking in and they don't care about the culture pronunciation. So anytime anybody's like Appalachia, I'm like, I'm gonna murder you.
No, and
it's not anybody's fault. Like there's a lot of people who like,
no, it's 100% true, and it shows where I'm from. You know, I'm from South Florida. I lived in Los Angeles. I moved here. You know, I don't know if it's Appalachia or Appalachia, and it's Appalachia. You know, I don't know that.
Yeah.
You know, and so my approaching of this is, of course, it's Appalachia or Appalachia. Like, I don't know. So yeah, now it's Appalachia.
I mean, you don't know until somebody tells you.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah.
So, and it's a similar way. Like, I'll have to find it at some point, but there's a really cool documentary about like Irish and UK relations in the turn of the century, and depending upon what political group you would pronounce certain town names on a different pronunciation.
It's big over there. That's a real thing.
And they'd be like, you know, they'd be like, hey, what's the name of the town? And they'd be like, it's this. And they'd be like, all right, well, we are going to drag you out back and beat you to death.
Right.
You know, or whatever. Like it was that serious.
No, it really was. And in cities in the U.S., it has been that way too in the past. You know? Let me ask you this other side question.
We're never going to get to the skunk apes.
No, this is it. This is it.
All right.
What do you know about Bigfoot?
It's different from a Yeti.
It's different from a Smallfoot?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So all I really know about Bigfoot is the, like, you know, what you learn about as a kid. Bigfoot's this, you know, caveman type unevolved thing that lives out in the mountains somewhere.
Did your parent, I mean, you grew up in Raleigh. I mean, did your parents ever tell you anything about Bigfoot? Did that anything like that ever come up? Like,
no, I mean, so my parents aren't from here.
Oh,
so this isn't really their thing. My mom's from DC. My dad's from Buffalo.
Oh, okay.
So this wasn't really their
liberals.
Thing. Yeah. So I have these like north of the Mason-Dixon line parents, but I'm over here like I'm a true Southern boy. And, you know, sort of. That's why I have like a non-accent.
No, it's cool. I get it. No.
But
I've lived in both Buffalo and DC, and I love both the cities.
Yeah. So, but if I get real drunk,
it'll come out.
Yeah. Or like if I am ass deep in a trout river, wearing full body camo, or ultra drunk, or at the beach, getting hammered and yelling at people from my parents' balcony at the beach, that's when I sound Southern.
All right, fair. All right. All right. So for me, I never knew about like what Bigfoot was growing up. Like no idea what Bigfoot was.
No.
But what I knew was the skunk ape.
I knew like what you learn about in elementary school.
Yeah, it's just like this big thing, whatever.
Yeah, it's just like this forest thing that people try to get pictures of and whatever.
Yeah. So for me,
like the Loch Ness Monster, you know,
essentially
like that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I grew up with like where the skunk ape was an actual reality. And the skunk ape is basically Bigfoot's Floridian cousin.
Yeah.
And so
he's bigger, stinkier, skunkier.
Exactly.
Apier.
And in South Florida, it wasn't like that the Bigfoot was this big scary like thing in the distance, or the Bigfoot was this big mysterious thing.
It was more of like a West Virginia mountainsy type deal.
Sort of, yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I don't even really know where Bigfoot is.
Northwestern, like Seattle, like
okay.
Think Portland and Oregon, yeah.
All right.
But for
See, I was way off.
people that grew up in Fort Lauderdale, like the actual skunk ape was a real problem. Like, because up until the 90s,
The skunk ape might get sparky.
well, the skunk ape was actually being seen, you know. So like in the 90s, like people were seeing the skunk apes like out in the edges of the wilderness.
Okay, so there's more than one.
Oh yeah,
Because there was like my
it's a whole
understanding of
population,
Bigfoot is
yeah.
it was like there's one Bigfoot out there.
and we're gonna get into that.
And it's like 1,000 years old or something.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that.
Okay,
So
okay.
they're definitely not 1,000 years old.
All right.
So, according to David Dagling, author of Bigfoot Exposed, an anthropologist examines America's enduring legend. The legend of the Bigfoot has been around long before there was any name for Bigfoot. Most cultures have some account of the humanoid giants in their history. The Bible and other holy books are littered with reference to the giants. Every language has their own term for the legends, and most mean something along the lines of wild man, hairy guy. A few other languages use descriptive terms of action such as eating clams or shaking trees. So, all the way back through history, there's descriptions of big dudes, big scary dudes who are coming around, shaking trees, eating clams, messing with people.
Okay.
And every single cultural norm has a historical description of these people.
And this isn't like, you know, there just happens to be a Thor Bjornsson living out in the woods.
Right.
This is like a whole other level of big.
Exactly. So they know about these like mythical beasts, whether they were imaginary or extinct. They knew that they used to exist. So
Okay.
all of these cultures.
Right, who's they know? Like,
so
there's fossils or something?
yeah. So ancient cultures had descriptions of these like gigantic beasts.
Okay.
So they all linked back to about 1 million years ago. There was an ape that was larger than a polar bear, known as Gigantopithecus. And this monster was an ancestor of the orangutan that could easily flip over any car and could just basically kill a Clydesdale by its hands. So picture an orangutan like 10 feet tall that could just wreck everything.
Okay, so way bigger than Thor Bjornsson.
It was
And that dude's big.
quite larger than Thor.
That, if you don't know who that is, it's the mountain from the
Right.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, exactly. So the Gigantopithecus stood more than 10 feet tall and probably weighed roughly 1,200 pounds, which is about 800 pounds more than a standard male gorilla.
Yeah, that's 800 pounds more than Thor Bjornsson's.
Roughly. And aside from making a few guesses about their diets and lifestyles, we really don't know much about these Gigantopithecus. So these were
so they don't know if they were herbivores or carnivores.
We really don't know.
Omnivores
Like,
or
I
whatever. They
mean,
don't know anything.
we have some jaws, we have some pieces. Basically, we think they, ate the same way gorillas did,
Okay.
So when you look at a gorilla, imagine a gorilla 10 feet tall that was just wrecking everything in its path. And this lived in South Asia 1 million years ago.
So we're talking about southern China, Tibet, India kind of area.
1 million years ago. Like
1
so long.
million
1
years ago.
million years ago. Yeah, exactly. Forever ago.
Okay.
And the thing is, we wouldn't even know that they ever existed except for one dude. This dude, Ralph von Koenigswald, this German paleoanthropologist. Koenigswald was working in Hong Kong in 1935 when people dragged him into a pharmacy that claimed to be selling actual dragon bones.
What?
Yeah, so this dude, he's a German paleoanthropologist. They grab him by the hand, lead him into this pharmacist, and they're like, look, this guy's selling dragon bones. Buy a couple. So he goes in there.
I mean, how could you not?
Well, I mean, they're dragon bones.
Yeah.
So he grabs a handful and he instantly realizes that these are actually like the
People
mandibles. Well, no, the mandibles of like a giant ape. So like Bigfoot jaw bones.
Okay.
And so this dude starts looking at him.
Well, so at the time, he just thinks, oh, this is like a really big gorilla.
Yeah, exactly. But at the time, we don't know that there was ever a really big gorilla.
Right.
So for him, this is like a world breaking and world shifting discovery because there's never been a gigantic gorilla. So he sees this thing and he looks at this, portion of jawbone and thinks, well, this must have been something really big, like large. This must have been a large guy. And he realizes pretty quickly these are not chunks of a dragon. And so he starts putting it together. And once Koenigswald knew what he was looking for, this clever researcher uncovered hundreds of teeth and a handful of jaw bones that were being sold and displayed by locals as the bones and teeth of these mythical dragon creatures.
Okay.
So he found all these pieces and he starts putting together, and he like starts piling it and realizing.
Does he like tell the locals, he was like, take me to where you found these?
Essentially, yeah. So he starts tracking down all these chunks.
Okay.
And he starts finding these other pieces, and he starts finding all these chunks of Gigantopithecus.
Okay.
Which is this ancient gigantic ape.
So he like kind of like finds enough pieces to like piece together a whole Bigfoot.
And so he essentially discovers this ancient Bigfoot from 1 million years ago.
Oh, damn, that's crazy.
And the funniest part about it is like these bones are 1 million years old, and these guys are selling it in this like random local pharmacy as like, here's a dragon. And it's like an actually like really rare and incredible thing. And they're just like,
dragon bones.
Dragon bone. It's like whatever. So then we wonder, putting this together, and this is what a lot of current researchers think, is Bigfoot some remnant cousin of this Gigantopithecus roaming the lesser populated areas of the world, like the Pacific Northwest? The Pacific Northwest, we roam Asheville, these places. Yeah, it's
it could, because if you think about Pangea theory,
if
it was in Southern Asia, it wouldn't have been that ridiculous to think, or even if we think about Pangea theory, they would actually have been on the other side of the world from each other. If we think about if they had traveled up from Southeast Asia up the coast of Eastern Asia through like the Russian Northeast Peninsula across to the US, which was only a thing that happened, millions of years later once the land masses moved. But okay. So it had to have stayed in Asia.
Pangea and
a lot of
Gigantopithecus are way far apart.
Right.
Like,
that's kind of what I'm thinking now that I've like kind of thought about it. Okay. So if the land masses have already separated, but at some point, the Russian America Bridge existed.
Sure. Yeah. Which it did.
You're right.
It did.
And we know that because species of wolves have migrated across, humans migrated across. So it easily could have existed in Asia, eventually made its way up, lived through the northeastern Russia, Mongolia area for a bunch of millions of years, and then at some point migrated its way across to like that Alaska area, and then lived in that like Northwest Canada area, and then kind of migrated its way down into Northwestern America.
Possibly.
Did I just like...
You just blew the whole theory.
Did I really?
No.
Oh, okay.
So essentially,
that'd be so sad. I didn't want to fuck it up.
Could you imagine if you just like blew it all wide open?
I'm amazing. Look at how smart I am.
I discovered the solution.
I made it up.
I mean, all evidence across the board shows that Gigantopithecus went extinct about 100,000 years ago. It shows that when the new kids on the block, Homo erectus, basically
the virus
us,
of the
but
planet.
slightly dumber.
Slightly dumber.
Overhunted their entire habitat.
I mean, chimpanzees.
Yeah, exactly.
Crushing it.
So basically, Homo erectus came in and just wiped out Gigantopithecus across the board because they were able to be more nimble. They were able to hunt like the same food source. And they were able to do better at it. And it's essentially like
breed faster, smaller, smarter.
Exactly. So
okay.
Fast forward 1 million or 100,000 years, depending on what you think, is, Gigantopithecus, while it was this big possibility, did not translate to, that's probably not Bigfoot,
Okay.
Just the realities of what was here in that time frame didn't pan out. So, but some of the earliest stories of the Sasquatch come from native people that were here long before us.
Okay, so is Sasquatch and the Bigfoot the same?
Basically, yeah.
Okay,
we're gonna use them interchangeably.
Okay, and that's different from the Yeti.
So we're gonna use Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and Skunk Ape a little bit interchangeably as the same thing.
Okay.
When we say skunk ape, we basically mean
The Florida
Bigfoots
version.
in Florida,
Okay.
because that's what my book focused on.
Okay.
But the rest, when we say Bigfoot, Sasquatch, that's kind of talking about the same sort of creature.
Okay. So what's a Yeti? That's like a snow thing.
Yeti is basically Bigfoot in like Nepal, that area.
Okay.
So that's kind of where that came from.
Okay. Because that
Yeah.
could still be another branch off. The ones
could.
that walked
Yeah,
up to the
absolutely.
Russian peninsula, the other ones walked down.
And the fact that there are so many different variations could
Yeah.
be a reality of like who they were and what they were, you know.
Okay. Because in my head, I'm seeing
You're seeing
and
a
God,
snowy
all of the
a
nerds.
snowy Wendigo.
Yeah. Well, all of the nerds are going to kill me right now because I can't think of the name of the thing, but the snow beast from like Empire Strikes Back.
Oh yeah, the
I can't think of it.
that wasn't it. You know, that's not what people are picturing. The
A Wampa.
yeah.
I can't believe that I let that slip my head right now. I love Star Wars so much. I know all kinds of horrible
you
Star
just
Wars
failed, though,
trivia.
didn't you?
I know I did fail.
Just dropped it.
But yeah, like when I think Yeti in my head, I'm seeing a Wampa.
Yeah, same. But the Yeti, the descriptions of the Yeti, going back to the ancient tales, are essentially the same as a Bigfoot, just in snow.
Okay.
You know, so it's all very similar. So
It's a
that's one
polar
of the
Bigfoot.
Say what?
Polar Bigfoot.
Exactly.
A polar Sasquatch.
So a lot of these stories, the reason that they're interesting is because there is this like thread throughout all of them where they have the same description of a beast or a being.
But are they the same color and everything? Or are they always like they're
Well, no,
big
they
and
describe
brown?
No, they describe them differently for different parts of the world. So like in Nepal, they talk about it as a white beast, you know.
Okay, so that's why I'm seeing a Wampa.
Right.
Okay.
And then when you talk about in the Pacific Northwest, they talk about the, you know, Harry from the Harry and the Hendersons, Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's what I think about when
Yeah.
I think Bigfoot too.
The earliest stories of Sasquatch come from some of these, some of the native people in the Pacific Northwest. Specifically in 1896, Chief Michelle, leader of the Nalaxa Pumix people from British Columbia, told a tale to Charles Hill Stout, a preacher turned ethnologist and folklorist, about the Scactaqualis. It's just a bunch of consonants that basically look like Sasquatch, or the benign-faced ones. Hilltow called the Saskatchewans the Ones of the Nalakapomics. Ones are a legendary tribe from the Persian Gulf and many other areas that are human-animal hybrids that are revered as demigods.
Yeah, I did not follow a single bit of that.
So
But, all right.
so basically, there's a guy who went to the Pacific Northwest and they told him there's some demigods living there.
Okay.
The Illumination told tales about the Sememiques, which were a local variant of the classic Bigfoot. Families talked of threatening creatures that would attack and dubbed them Stehea or Quiquia, and they were nocturnal monsters that would carry off any person that spoke their name, even very quietly.
Okay, so don't look in the mirror and say whatever that was.
Definitely
times.
not Candyman 3 times. So
Yeah.
in 1847, there was a traveling artist named Paul Kane who wanted to get as close as possible to Mount St. Helens so that he could paint a likeness of it. He turned to all of his local guides who are local Chinook natives, and he asked them if they would take him as close as possible. All of them refused at any price that he would provide, and they wouldn't bring him within 20 miles of the peak of this mountain.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, 20 miles, which is pretty crazy.
That's a long way in the mountains.
Yeah. So when he pushed all of them on the issue and pressed them and demanded to be taken there, they told tales of a race of cannibalistic wild men called skookums that lived all over the mountain. The Chinook held the creatures in great dread and refused any offerings to do an introduction between Cain and the skookums. So basically, they thought that these dark, evil cannibals lived all over Mount St. Helens. And no matter what this guy offered them, pay-wise, they would not bring him anywhere close.
What year was this?
This was 1847.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say at that time, if the Native Americans are afraid,
Steer clear.
yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
they got to know. You know what I mean? Like they know some shit that you don't know, and if they don't want to go, you don't go. You know?
So around that same time period, there were a bunch of less threatening and less evil Sasquatch tales from around the same area. From basically 1840 to 1900, there were a ton of stories of people saying, there's these big beasts that live out there, don't go. But none of them were as terrifying as the ones above. They were all basically like, just don't mess with them.
Okay, yeah.
And this kind of brings together like this ongoing discussion of where the origins of the whole Bigfoot theory came from, which was a lot of native tribes would describe a horrible beast that lived in the woods who protected their area and didn't want to see white people.
Right. They're like a guardian of the
essentially, yeah,
woods or something.
So that was a huge thing, was they were basically saying there's a guardian out in the woods who doesn't want you around, so don't hang out here. And that was an ongoing stereotype that just kept showing up and showing up.
Okay.
And basically everything I dove into and all of the different examples I found, it was the there was a guardian that lived in the woods that would mess you up if you went there.
Okay, so the same trope was just like over and over again in different locations with different people and different
thousands
cultures.
of miles apart, all the different cultures.
All right.
And so
there's got to be something going on.
So exactly, yeah. So thousands of miles apart in the 1800s, people wouldn't come up with the idea of like, hey, let's just tell people there's a boogeyman in the woods.
Right.
So there must have been some sort of idea that there was something there.
Yeah.
Either a shared religious principle or like something that like pointed to this. Going all the way back, we're still in the late 1800s.
Okay.
The first photographic evidence of Bigfoot emerged in 1894. This picture of a definitely Sasquatch-looking beast lying face down in a snowdrift circled around Bigfoot blogs for decades before any known story of background was known about it. So this picture was shared around between tons of Bigfoot blogs in the early 1990s. It was printed in a bunch of books, and nobody really knew what it was. And it was shared and shared and shared. And then eventually somebody found the original copy and they flipped it over, and there was a bunch of writing in the back. And so this thing was lost in time, and they found this like printing on the back. Okay. And it basically said that in 1894, these random trappers, like these guys that were out there to kill beavers, came across this beast and they shot it and took a photo of it.
Okay, and they just happened to have an 1894 Polaroid on them.
That's the question. Is like to take a photo in 1894 is a really big deal. Like you have to have basically like a decent size cooler full of chemicals and different things to take a photo and get it out in the 1890s.
So what? They just happen to have a photographer with them? They just happen to have
this camera ready. They just happen to have all this stuff there. So we wonder, is it legit or not?
Yeah. Could they have like heard the story of the whatever beast and like faked it, or something?
Maybe they had this guy with them who takes photos.
Wouldn't it be funny?
Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
So the reality is all of this stuff was going on. They happened to have this guy who had a full camera setup in 1890, and they shot a Bigfoot, and he took a photo of the Bigfoot face down the camera. Now,
of course, it's face down too.
Well, it got shot.
I feel like if they shot it, you're not going to roll it over or whatever.
I guess.
Take more than one picture.
But so the original, the photo has been verified to be okay. It's an original photo. So if there was photoshopping done, it had to be done on the mountain in the 1890s.
Okay.
So
the picture itself is real.
It could have been a dude in a fur coat face down.
Right.
It looks like a gorilla face down. You know? So it's hard to tell.
Does he have hairy butt cheeks?
The butts are kind of hard to tell. It's a little fuzzy. It's the buttocks are a little difficult.
All right.
We'll put a link to the photo in the show notes. I'll make a note to do that.
All right.
And we'll get back there. So Since then, the sightings have grown exponentially since the turn of the 20th century, most occurring in Pacific Northwest along the Great Lakes, southeastern seaboard, and the Appalachia. And since the 1940s, Florida has quickly become a hotbed of the Sasquatch and the skunk ape sightings.
Okay, so Northeast, y'all are lame, don't have any. Clearly there aren't any.
Yeah, nothing up in Maine.
There are no like Southwest desert Yetis, apparently. So.
Right. There's no desert Yetis. They're all woods or the swamp.
Okay.
So moving into Florida, Florida was no stranger to tall tales of mythical beasts and from the native people specifically. Sightings began pretty much immediately as Seminoles and the Miccosukee started traveling into South Florida, through the Trail of Tears and through that time period.
Okay. So are there other mythical beasts in Florida, or is it really
there are, yeah.
just the
So
skunk ape?
there's basically some dragon stuff and some
It's like giant crocodile stuff.
Well, yeah, because you have actual giant alligators down there, so you get a lot of that stuff.
Alligators, not
Yeah.
crocodiles. Different part of the country for those.
Yeah. So there are some crocodiles, but they're saltwater crocodiles. It's a whole.
It's
thing.
complicated.
Yeah. So, anyways, they called the skunk ape originally SD Kapkaki, which translates to tall man, according to locals.
Okay.
And there's a lot of SD Kapkaki living down there in the heavy woods. And according to the guy who runs the Florida Skunk Ape Research Center, this guy named David Shealy, they also live up in the trees and they're all over the place.
Okay.
So they call the tall man the protector of the woods, and the tall man didn't like white folks poking around their home turf and damaging the delicate ecosystem and finding and uncovering the sacred medicine there. So by protecting the woods, the tall men also protect the earth, the medicines, the herbs, and everything else found there hidden among the trees. The Miccosukee and the Seminoles also say the tall men enjoy spying on people, but they prefer to be left alone and simply disappear at will whenever they're threatened or a white person comes around. So my theory on this is that they basically created a boogeyman who
to try and keep white people away from the
try to keep settlers and people from coming in and like coming into their land. That's what it feels like to me.
I mean, that seems
And if you look back
reasonable.
if you look back to the settings in the Pacific Northwest in the 1890s, 1880s, that's exactly what's happening there. Is white people were moving in and taking over neighborhoods and not neighborhoods,
Shocker.
but taking over land. And so the natives were starting to like find a way to like have a discussion in that,
Yeah.
So who knows?
So like their family burial grounds or where they live could have, like if we think about Mount St. Helen, right?
Yeah.
The natives could have basically claimed that mountaintop area as their land, and they wanted a way to keep white people out, and their way to do that was to say there was this thing up there that will take your children and murder you and whatever. Yeah, so like you said, they needed a boogeyman to scare people and keep white people away. And they're like, oh, they don't fuck with us because we don't fuck with them. But if you go up there, he's definitely going to fuck with you.
Yeah, 100%. So these indigenous beliefs led to the later white settlers and even later yet contemporary folks telling their own tales about sightings of the skunk apes and the Bigfoot. Around the same time that Andrew Genzoli, a journalist from Northern California, started publishing tales of the Bigfoot in the Humboldt Times, there were already sightings popping up all over the Everglades. Back in 1942, deep inside Suwannee County, a man was driving along a dirt road and claimed that one of these random skunk apes jumped onto the side of his car, standing on a running board, the side of the car. Yeah. He jumped onto it.
He was basically like moto surfing the side of his Suburban or whatever.
And jumped onto this vehicle and held on for over a half mile.
All right.
Totally freaked this dude out. He went to the police, filed reports, who knows. So another skunk ape encounter happened in 1957 in the heart of Big Cypress. Two men who we don't have their names. They spent the whole day deer hunting and settled down in their camp and started cooking dinner. And after they got nice and comfy, a skunk ape burst forth from the dense scrub brush and proceeded to ravage their entire camp, flipped over their tents, ripped up their fire, and the startled hunters ran like hell as the skunk ape grabbed their dinner off the fire and ate it. So
I think they just burned their whatever they were making. They needed a good story.
needed an excuse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can't be sure who came up with the term skunk ape, but it started popping up in the 1960s. David Shealy, owner of the Skunk Ape Research Center, said the following about the coining of the phrase in emails between himself and author Lauren Coleman, who wrote for the BBC about the whole phenomenon. The term skunk ape has been used as far back as I can remember. When I was just a boy, most likely 7 or 8 years old, a local man by the name Raymond Wooten would visit our home for dinner. Many evenings, the conversation topic was skunk apes. So it's safe to say that the skunk ape name has been around for at least 35 years. I do not remember the exact dates of the Davie, Florida incidents where a skunk ape supposedly killed some cattle and was fired upon by the Florida Highway Patrol. Skunk ape sightings have become so commonplace by the early 1970s that most residents and lawmakers thought it was only a matter of time before some entrepreneurial young Floridian would get their hands on a live skunk ape and start using it in a roadside circus. So, Republican State Representative Paul Knuckles from Fort Myers offered up House Bill 1664, which declared it a misdemeanor to take, process, harm, or molest anthropoid or humanoid animals. Knuckles essentially told a local paper, "I'd hate to see someone catch one of these skunk apes and put it in a circus or a zoo." And knowing Floridians, that's exactly what they would do. While the bill sailed through the committees, it was pulled at the last minute before an official vote happened, and Knuckles, who was very serious about this very serious topic, submitted it again the next year and was completely shot down. Even without support from the Florida state legislature, skunk apes kept popping up all over the state well into modern times, and with the new era, it seemed like the sightings got a bit more legitimate. In 1997, an entire tour bus traveling through Big Cypress spotted the skunk ape. This was 30 or 40 people all saying they saw the same thing. David Shealy, the owner of the Skunk Ape Research Center, told a local newspaper. They all saw a 7-foot red-haired ape. Shealy had a waning interest in the skunk apes over the last few decades, and this very public sighting reinvigorated him. He amped up his efforts and searched and decided it was time to find the mythical beast once and for all. One little-known fact about the skunk apes is that they love lima beans. Apparently, they go absolutely bonkers for these legumes, and Shealy would leave plates of the beans all over the area surrounding his home in Okeechobee, Florida. And what do you know what happened? In the morning, Shealy would come out, and the beans would all be missing. But in Florida, you leave anything out edible, and it would vanish.
Right.
Bugs, gators, anything. It all disappears.
Yeah. But it was definitely the skunk ape.
Right. So, but Shealy's magical beans must have worked because in 1997, from July 16th through August 17th, there were 6 very in-depth, well-documented sightings of a bipedal creature in the area directly surrounding the spot where Skunk Ape headquarters sits today. The 6 instances happened near what was described as a burnt-out wooden bridge located on the east side of Turner Road in Okeechobee, Florida. And Florida's major newspapers all came out to interview people and try to get pictures of the elusive beast. Reporters from Tampa and Miami descended on the area and started running their theories and descriptions while Shealy was out there tracking down footprints and trying to get photos. The first sighting on July 16th at 2 p.m. was by Steve Goodbread, a driver for Pelican Tours who pulled up to the burned-out bridge with a bus full of tourists. Together, they observed a large brownish-colored creature hiding behind some brush at the far end of the bridge. The creature continually stood upright on 2 legs, was approximately 7 feet tall, and had hair covering its entire body, except for the face, and was rocking back and forth and shaking bushes and trees, trying to scare people off. Goodbread told reporters at the time. So we go on through here, and basically through this 2-week period in 1997, there was an endless amount of sightings. From people would pull buses up filled with tourists, and the tourists would all see the skunk ape in the same area. And individuals from the fire chief in the area to realtors to all these different people would be brought out to the same 2-block spread in this city of Okeechobee, Florida, and all of them would see the same exact thing throughout this entire
And we
period.
sure it wasn't like Andre the Giant fucking with people.
Well, we don't know where Andre was in July of 1997. I'm sure we could probably find out. I'm sure if you Googled, he's probably at some WWF event. But through this time period, endless people, like over 100 people, saw the skunk ape in this one period, in this one spot. There were some photos taken. There was some different evidence gathered, and basically they decided, as they looked at it, this was a real occurrence, and it did seem that way. Basically, two tourist bus drivers, a realtor, Shealy himself were all among the crew that spotted this creature. While some didn't call it a hoax, a few did, and even a few used the exact term, it looked like a quote-unquote man in a gorilla suit. In the history of the skunk ape, though, this was definitely the highest number of human eyes in any one such short period of time. Counting the bus full of tourists, upwards of 50 people spotted the cryptid within 2 weeks, and this is undoubtedly peak skunk ape season. The people involved in the local weather records from the time agreed that the conditions for spotting wildlife was optimal. The water table was higher than ever. It was extremely hot. It was extremely wet. This basically created a perfect storm for seeing any sort of wildlife. And so in December of 2000, 3 years later, we started seeing more sightings. People started taking more photos. And one of the most well-known pictures of the skunk ape, if you actually Google skunk ape, this is the photo you will see at the very top. It looks like a golden retriever wearing a bear rug. And it's basically was taken by a concerned woman who described the creature as an orangutan and said it was scared and thought it came from the circus. And she sent this to the sheriff in hopes of him grabbing the creature. But there's really no mistaking that, like, this definitely was not like an orangutan or a dog wearing fur. If you look at the actual picture, it does absolutely resemble some sort of monster hiding inside these palmetto leaves with glowing eyes and barred teeth. There's no joke about it. Everybody knows what it is. That's exactly it. The one you're looking at right there. What do you see in that picture?
I mean, I don't know. It does. It looks like a giant orangutan.
Right. But it's definitely not like a dog with fur on it.
No,
like it's something different.
I don't know. This looks like some gigantic thing that would have come out of like Jim Henson's Monster Shop.
Right.
Or something. Like,
it could also be a gigantic fake Muppet,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the eyes and the mouth with the teeth and the fur, like, it looks like he's got a little bit of gray going on down on the bottom of the chin.
Could be
like,
older. You know how dogs get when they get old.
Like, I don't know. I have a hard time believing that he just like stood there and smiled for a picture.
Yeah,
you know what
so
I mean?
It's kind of weird, right?
Yeah, very weird. Because when you were describing it, I was like, "There's no way." I saw this picture. I was like, "There's no way this is the one."
Yeah, no, that's it. That's the one.
That's ridiculous. Like, I see this picture, I'm like, "That's ridiculous." There's no way that this is the one that they're talking about.
So let me ask you a side question.
Okay.
What do you know about burrowing owls?
Burrowing owls?
Yeah, owls that live in the ground. Burrowing
Nothing.
owls.
Really?
You don't know. Do you know that there are owls that live in the ground?
No.
Okay. So in Florida and other kind of southern states, there's owls that live in the ground, burrowing owls.
Okay.
So in 2004, the burrowing owls on the Florida Atlantic University campus in Boca Raton, Florida, represented a serious linchpin in the entire population of the Florida burrowing owl in general.
Okay.
So these little owls, they're about 8 inches tall. They live in the ground.
Okay.
Hunt worms and whatnot.
Okay.
On that campus in Florida Atlantic University, there were 37 owls on campus back then in 2004.
Okay.
And they were the central breeding population of Palm Beach County. So they made up the entire breeding population of that county. This is going somewhere, I promise.
Okay. I'm just like, all right.
So what these birds in Boca Raton did is they linked together the birds in the northern city of Jupiter, Florida, about 40, 50 miles north, and the birds further south, 40, 50 miles south in Broward County.
Okay.
So because there was a population of birds in the center, the population of birds in the south and the population of the birds in the north were able to intermingle and share their genetic diversity.
Okay.
This is a thing that has to happen so that animals can continue to grow.
Okay.
To flourish.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, makes sense.
So if you take these Boca Raton birds,
Okay.
off the game board, you're missing a very important piece. Without them, the entire region collapses because there are no central breeding populations. And then the northern and the southern birds become completely isolated, and they will inbreed and breed themselves out of existence quickly.
Right. All right. Makes sense.
That's what happens there. So it's estimated that the burrowing owls in each area needed at least 17 breeding pairs to guarantee their further existence. Other species have somewhat different numbers of individuals,
Plus or minus.
whatever. For most animals, we know what these numbers are for most animals. Like
Okay.
we have this written down. So
All right,
it's
all
not
right.
like a big
Secret.
guess.
Okay.
So the closest comparison when we look at all of the things like Bigfoot, all that stuff, the closest comparison we could pull up for the skunk apes or for the Bigfoot would be the eastern gorilla. Estimates by the World Wildlife Foundation suggest 250 to 500 individual gorillas are needed to continue their existence. The rule of 5,500 is often cited when it comes to primate extinction. Australian geneticist Ian Franklin and American biologist Michael Soule came up with the general rule that 50 individuals in the species will keep inbreeding at bay, and 500 will prevent genetic drift. Genetic drift basically being a way of saying dead forever and never coming back.
Okay. Right.
Many wildlife management agencies love this 5,500 number because it allows them to generalize whole populations of extremely diverse animals, but every species is very, very different. Koalas don't reproduce in the same numbers as rabbits, and guppies are not out there forcing zookeepers to have mental breakdowns the way pandas do.
Right.
So now we have like artificial intelligence, and it can like map these populations and look at what everybody needs and really put it together.
Right.
And now that we've been able to look at all this stuff, we can look at back in the 90s, there was this controversial idea called the Toba catastrophe theory that emerged. It basically explained that 75,000 years ago, the human species was completely rocked by a series of tragedies, and the population was reduced to somewhere between 10,000 and 30,000, or about as many people that fit in the Los Angeles Staples Center. Other people call this the grand bottleneck. The whole idea was based on the evidence that a sudden climate change and a weird lack of genetic variation in humans caused these problems. So because of a supervolcano, we essentially almost went extinct. There's a ton of controversy around how long the human population remained so small, but there is no controversy around the population being reduced to such a low number. And there's evidence that this has happened to other species. Many species have come back from the brink. Northern elephant seals, cheetahs, golden hamsters. These are all populations of animals that have recovered from having their census drop below the double-digit mark. So like the golden hamsters, at one point there was like 8 of them.
Holy shit.
And they completely recovered.
Okay.
And came back. So the theory is that humans were part of that.
Okay.
We got down to like a couple thousand humans because there was like a super volcano, and now we have social media and hate each other.
Right.
So
and we're overrunning the world and destroying it.
Exactly. So from the year 2000, there was a molecular biology and evolution paper that suggested the limited variation in human genetics could be derived from this long bottleneck in a human population could have dropped below 2,000. They think it's rare, but it's possible we could have dropped below 2,000. But more likely, we were closer to 10 to 15,000, and it could have lasted as long as 100,000 years.
The population was that low.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, wow, that's crazy.
So crazy long bottleneck. And if we look at that, is something like that possible for the Bigfoot or the skunk ape? Could we have a population of 2,000 for 100,000 years? Like, could it drop that low?
Well, I guess it depends on what do we mean when we mean 2,000? Do we mean 2,000 worldwide?
Right, because you have to look at breeding populations, where they're at.
How far are they willing to travel to mate?
Right, so you're not going to have
Like
Bigfoot.
2000 in Florida.
Right. You're not going to have the Bigfoot in Seattle breeding with the ones in Florida. And you're not going to have 2,000 of them in Florida because we would see that.
Right. Exactly. So I guess the question is really like,
how many Bigfoot do we see before we start realizing they're there? So
yeah,
we have 17 of these birds on a college campus in Boca Raton, Florida, and we know where every single one of them are.
well, that's on a college campus in Boca Raton. That's not hiding in the swamp.
In the middle of nowhere, yeah. So I mean, it's questionable. Like what would we find? What would we see?
Yeah.
So anyways, so
is that what we were getting to? Like
we're getting there.
Okay.
We're almost there.
All right.
So Gigantopithecus was last seen roaming the earth more than 100,000 years ago. And while it technically is possible that a few thousand of these massive orangutans survived for 100,000 years, just like humans did before the Stone Age, it's probably unlikely. Maybe. When humans and other animals experienced this bottleneck phenomenon, it was imperative that they clung to each other for safety and kept their breeding partners nearby and planted local breeding populations in the area. Looking back at the burrowing owls, we can see how important it was to keep mates fairly close within 90 miles of each. And if you pull a group out of that, it can fall apart each way.
Right.
A bottleneck population of Sasquatches, how would they survive if the other ones were 90 miles away, 100 miles away, 30 miles away? And then how deep and dark are those woods in reality? You know?
And I mean, with birds, 90 miles, sure.
Right.
With ground bipeds, 90 miles?
It's a long way.
Yeah.
I don't like driving 90 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we start looking at, the eastern gorilla, they're in a couple of very constricted parks. Not very constricted. They're pretty wide-ranging parks in Africa. And we look at their population of 400, 500, gorillas in that area. We know where every single one of them is in this massive park covered with bugs that are going to kill you, dudes with guns, horrible living circumstances, but we know where every one of those gorillas is.
But we don't know where a single skunk ape, Yeti, Sasquatch, or Bigfoot is.
Right. Like, what's the reality of them being somewhere in the Pacific Northwest or in the Everglades?
Right.
When we're out there, like,
all the time,
cane sugar and like doing all these different things. You know?
It seems low.
It does seem low. So even with a really small population census, like something like the Amur leopard, which is this very rare kind of sky leopard, there's only 60 of them left. And they live in this incredibly scary mountainous region of Russia, right on the border of North Korea. And we know where every single one of them are. And there's 60 of them on the entire planet.
Yeah, and there's really no reason we would ever want to be anywhere near Russia or North Korea.
Right, exactly. But like National Geographic has 1 million photos of these things.
Yeah.
So that's what it comes down to. Is this question is, we know where all these endangered species are, even though they're roaming these distant mountains that are packed full of machine gun wieldy humans and bugs that are going to kill you. I feel like if there was this sort of like Gigantopithecus in the Everglades or the Big Cypress or out in the Pacific Northwest, we would definitely have more than like a couple of
really
bus
grainy
drivers
Polaroids of it
from the 1997s.
Or the weird like cheesing through the palmetto leaves picture.
Exactly. Especially nowadays. And in beyond what I discussed right here in my book, I go into there's a guy who was chasing around the Loch Ness Monster for years.
Yeah.
And he basically in the early 2000s when the first iPhone came out, he was like, it's all done. There's obviously no Loch Ness Monster. He had spent 20 years chasing this thing.
Yeah.
He's like, it's obviously done because everyone has a phone in their pocket now and there would be 1 billion photos.
Yeah.
And so I can rest and be done with this. And I don't feel like there's a Loch Ness Monster.
Okay. So is your consensus that you feel like Yeti, Skunk Ape, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, not real?
Yeah, that's my consensus. I feel like there was at some point some, Gigantopithecus monster out there
Yeah.
that our collective conscious remembers.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was passed down through oral histories, and there are native populations that have these stories of gigantic monsters that live in the woods, and they use those stories as a way to keep people out of their business.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
that's
that makes way more sense to me.
That's what I feel like.
They had these stories of a thing that existed way in the past, probably gone, and they needed a boogeyman. So they pulled a story
100%.
out of the library and blew it up. And people thought it was great and fascinating and fun. And so they started to see it in the Everglades. They would see them in the woods. But I don't know. They didn't really see anything. They saw a bear. They saw whatever.
Yeah.
They saw a dude wearing a giant Yeti costume from the creature shop.
Yeah.
You don't know.
And spoiler, if you do read my book or reach out and you want to read it, I do dive into the theories around that. Like, I did talk to some people down there and like some thoughts about who put on possibly a
Yeti costume,
Skunk Ape costume.
Yeah. They staged it or whatever.
Yeah, it's fully possible. It's very possible.
Yeah. More possible than the idea that this thing is actually out there.
Yeah, like a thing that went extinct 100,000 years ago. We would have to have evidence somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my theory. I'm sticking to it.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us again. We ranted so long this time, so episode's extra long.
Enjoy.
Thank you for sticking in there. This is a great story. Check out Jake's book. It's on Amazon. You can get it for a whole 99 cents, or if you don't want to pay that, reach out to him.
Email
get
me
it for free.
We'll put a link up.
Yeah, we appreciate it, guys, and we will see you next time.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Brewluminati. Our intro and outro music is written by Dungeness. Want to learn more about the topics we cover and who we are? Join us on Facebook and Instagram at Brewluminati Podcast for behind-the-scenes content and updates. Do you have mystical powers of insight or just questions, suggestions, and feedback? Reach out to us at thebrewluminati@gmail.com. Are you ready to immerse yourself into the inner circle? Visit patreon.com/Brewluminati Podcast. For the same price as a cup of coffee or sandwich you won't remember, because of mind control, you can join the Brewluminati and lift the veil on the true mysteries of the universe. Your membership to the Conclave unlocks access to our secret Discord server, bonus Patreon-only content, behind-the-scenes talks, and much more. Every dollar spent not only helps us reveal the truths of the world, but also frees us to make the show better, weirder, and allows us to go deeper and deeper into the void while funding our next beer run. When we're not talking conspiracies and beer, we're passionate about saving the forgotten puppies and kitties of the world. 10% of every dollar you donate goes directly to the Best Friend Pet Adoption Agency. They are a local 501c3 all-breed, all-foster cat and dog rescue that will save the life of a pet who never had a chance. Keep an eye out because we'll be posting pictures of the lives our listeners save. For more information on Best Friend Pet Adoption, head over to bfpa.org. Join us again next week for another episode of Brewluminati. We know you will, because again, mind control is real.